the list. There's some sort of music playing.
Can I get a photo of you guys just for the website?
Yeah, sure. Hang on a second. we're clearly a well-oiled machine here.
Elon, thank you very much for talking to me.
You're welcome.
So it was fun, Elon. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Sounds good.
Well,
this is really given me a long list of feature improvements that we need for spaces.
Oh yeah, I have a bunch of suggestions. Not right now, but I do. Being on Twitter Spaces every single day, there are a host of problems. First of all, where's the desktop app? Right, I want to connect with a nice microphone. Yeah, and the phone overheats.
It's pretty good, but it's like it's a lot of things need to be improved. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. There's a laundry list of things.
All right, cool.
How often do you stalk Twitter Spaces? I'm like, I'm sure you have like an alt account or something. Do you stalk Twitter Spaces?
No, not really. And I actually didn't even have a burner account. I do have a second account at this point because I need to test the app before it goes out. So it's kind of like a beta test account. But no, I don't have a burner or anything like that.
Okay.
And never have had.
So no Pierre. What was the guy's
Pierre
name?
Delecto.
Mitt Romney's.
Pierre Delecto.
Pierre Delecto. Pierre Delectos and Zaza Demons. Yeah, none of those. Okay.
Nope. So.
Hey guys, it finally worked. Nikki, I was like, let me try one more time before I give up on it, but it worked this time. Guys, retweet the space. I'm gonna open this up just for I don't know, roughly like 30 minutes to an hour at the latest, but I want to get this information out. It's regarding the UN. It's really around like the comprehensive sexual education. They just released a report like 4 days ago. In addition to that, they had a decriminalization report. Like I did a whole thread on it. And now this news that drops with Epstein, are they all related? Yeah, I know. Mind blown. Retweet the space. I just have a couple things I need to do. Nikki, if you could kind of get people up if they want to come up. And then we can talk about, Adrian's here. Good morning, Adrian. You missed a whole like space on AI and very interesting stuff. You would have totally loved that space. But welcome to this one as well. So yeah, Nikki, if you could hold it down for just a second while I get something taken care of. I'll be back in like 1 minute, literally.
Cool beans. That looks like a lot you've been doing, Adrian. Busy.
Yeah, I basically like scrapped a few things as well, probably like 50% of what I was working on, just to like see if what would work better. Originally, I wanted to like introduce a whole bunch of concepts, and I said, you know what? This is becoming so big, it's literally a folder hierarchy. I want to keep some of that, but not all of it. So basically, that's why I pitched this idea. I said, what do you think about, creating an entire sub-thread for all the studies and such, So basically, I want to introduce 4 different sections of content. Like, of course, we're always going to have the, standard reply feature within the tweet. Like, we put it there. And as well, what I also want to do is create a bit of structure, like labeling in a sense, really. So it'd be easier. So that's why I'm going to be dividing the content into 4 citation spaces, basically, for, each space. And that would be, for just, the studies, and then books, Substack articles, and miscellaneous content. So basically, we're trying to order that. So that's the first thread I'm going to be tweeting. So if any one of you follows me and you see random weird tweets, that's probably because I'm putting together a really strange thread. Yeah.
They're used to seeing random weird tweets because, a lot of them know me. Right? Right, guys? Yeah. We're trying to kind of get. She's gonna. She had the other room open, and then wanted to start this room for about an hour to go through some stuff. So that's kind of what we're doing here. How you doing, citizen? Chris, let me give you a mic so you can come up and chit chat.
Doing well. I'm pretty familiar with what Maze is going to be presenting, although I haven't dug in. So I'm excited to hear what she has to say. I kind of skimmed through it, and yeah, so pretty alarming stuff, pretty interesting. We'll see how it goes.
Can I put out a few things?
Hey guys, I'm back. Okay, so I'm gonna put these links in the thread, the what do you call it? The chat, the you know what I mean, the little Nexium thing. Guys, retweet this page.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Adrian?
No, I just love the way you're like getting it out there. You must have something really important to explain because you're like bursting with energy.
Well,
she's awesome.
well, so I've really put this on the back burner a little bit, last night because I really wanted to talk about the AI stuff that I'd found and play those clips. And I'm glad I'm actually having this space to kind of get it out. And then I'm going to have a longer space for us to kind of talk through it in depth. But it's very important because just like we look for threats and risks of like AI, I think now with all of the, not globalism, but globalization that's happening as a result of AI, there's wanting to be like this greater broad globalism, which is kind of like a centralized structure, kind of managing everything at the global level. So what happens is through the UN and these types of global organizations, and the World Economic Forum is kind of more of a facilitator. They pull together all the public and legislators and the private multinational corporations and kind of write white papers and all that stuff and write policies and pass them off to prominent officials all around the world. Now, when it comes to the UN and all of its sub-organizations, such as UNESCO, such as International Planned Parenthood Federation, and all of them, there's so many of them. And the two that I'm going to be talking about tonight, though, are those. What they do is they write basically kind of this ideal about what globally, the perspective should be around, this, and tonight is specifically around comprehensive sexual education for kids. These are kids ages 8 to 14, and they talk about very, very explicit, and they teach them things that, and we've been kind of dealing with this already in the United States, as they've kind of, most people have been, really hyper focused on social emotional learning and hyper focused on, the CRT and all that stuff. This is definitely a part of all of that. And they're just not really giving parents an option and a reason to a way to opt out, because it's a whole framework. It's a framework of education. Now, one other thing is that what I found really, now guys, you know me, I always parse my information as such. So let me just say, this is totally an opinion, totally, May's stretching her imagination. This is not proven in any way, but I find it really interesting that the Epstein list, because you guys saw the news about JP Morgan, how JP Morgan has a lawsuit against them for the Epstein stuff. Okay. Oh, Rob is here. Let me bring him up. Well, when I did my thread a few weeks ago on the decriminalization of statutory rape, decriminalization of sex working, which is prostitution and whatever, I was like, why, right? It totally blew my mind. And they had a heavy focus on consent, people's right to consent, regardless, there shouldn't be a minimum age, right? And so I'm thinking like, wait a minute. Today I was like, hold up, is this related? Like, do you guys think that they're trying to prepare the stage and the world stage for all these people that are on this list so that they don't get in trouble. I don't know. It's totally a stretch, but I don't know. It might not be though. But you guys go ahead and chime in for a second, and I'm making a coffee because I need to get my head right before we talk about this stuff.
Go ahead, Indy.
Thank you, Maze, and thank you, Nikki. And that's a wonderful space you just started. I said,
You are really hard to hear. It sounds pinky, like, I don't know, echoey, or is that just me?
is that good now?
That's perfect.
Thank you. So I've shared the two images where those are actually of 17 United Nations goals kept for 2030 for all the nations, and 169 sub-goals where Maze was actually talking about girl education, child education between 8 to 14, and there were child rape cases. There are a lot actually over there. It actually includes about sustainable energy. It's about life underwater. It's about no poverty. And somehow we researched the mentioned emotions out there from sad to grief to happiness to kind to joy, whatnot, into different verticals and sectors. We actually trained one of the LLM on the emotions and the griefs and the memories of one of the chat and took the 17 goals of 169 goals out there. We got wonderful patterns and trails for the next 15 years, how companies with their own CSR funds of 2% of profits can actually attain these particular sustainable goals with 0%, zero carbon emissions and everything. Going further, I'd like to add my research notes depending on the topics which you actually raise, which definitely fall in those particular 169 sectors and of course those emotions. Thanks for this particular space.
I unfortunately caught only just the tail end of everything that you said, but I will say you're welcome for this space and welcome to hang around. We'll sync up as soon as we get the room flowing. Hey, Rob, welcome. Good to see you here.
Hey, long time. How you been?
I've been doing fantastic. Thank you, love. How you been?
Oh, I'm busy with the work I do. I'm really busy right now. So, but hey, I did want to point out it's kind of interesting, when you talk about the sexualization of our kids, you notice they use interesting words. Now parents are upset about the books that are showing up in school libraries. And they're saying, look, we want to censor them from our kids. We want to be the ones to make the choice. But when you listen to the media, they use words like parents are coming in to ban books. Well, when you ban a book, that means that you get rid of it. You can't see it. You can't buy it in the store. And all parents are asking is that don't put it in our libraries or put it in an area where kids that my child can't get at it if I don't want them to get at it. So, but just pay real careful attention to the words that are being used now. You brought up Epstein. You notice that they're slowly leaking out the information about his address books, and you start seeing the people that have been involved that have met with him as well. So I think there's a lot of movies that are playing right now. People use the term. I think all coming together in an interesting way. And again, I go back and say that a lot of times when you see these moves that are going on, it's defensive moves now that we as parents, as adults, as reasoning people are starting to get control of the narrative. And I think we're doing a good job at keeping them on the defense now. So I appreciate you setting the rooms up like this, Maze. This is always good to have people learning.
Thank you so much. It is. And you know something, I know it's kind of one of those things I'm supposed to be doing because not a lot of people really have time to go through these long ass, crazy, mundane, like topics about a whole bunch of blogs except me. I mean, well, not, of course, not just me. A lot of, I mean, there's a small group of people who just tend to be intrinsically motivated to do the most mundane shit. And it's in those things that we have to lean into them sometimes because it's obviously for me to share, that's kind of, and I need to make sure I do my job. Go ahead, citizen, jump in, love.
Yeah, no, digging in deep on this stuff, that's my pleasure. So I feel you on that. It's interesting that you brought up the Epstein situation. And while I can't necessarily connect the dots, right? I mean, it is interesting that there is language being, and it's been there for a while, but like talking about minor attracted person, and there are people who are trying to kind of make that legitimate, and you see certain pieces of legislation being proposed every once in a blue moon. Like I can't specify it because I haven't gone as deep as I would like to on that subject as it relates to the UN and what they just did and what you were posting. But it's not as far fetched as it sounds, and it's already present in multiple school districts. And the hardest thing right now for me when I post on my personal pages is I have to be able to say it's different in every count or every school district, different in every state. The language is different. Here's a piece of legislation being passed here, or excuse me, passed, proposed, and it just takes a lot of time to be able to differentiate, because it's always so it's one way or the other way, where you're either transphobe or you're trying to bring in Marxist ideology that is going to destroy the entire, like, it's just the most extreme messaging. And so that part makes it very difficult. But the part that you were discussing in the UN and what they were recommending, it has legs. And so it is something that needs to be on our radar.
Absolutely. And I put a bunch of links inside of the thread so far. I'm still looking for one more, but when they specifically outline that children, it says children, literally the words say children. Matter of fact, let me just read, like, and I had to run this by a few people, including Nikki, when I because last night she was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm sitting here reading this UN document or whatever. And I sent her the screenshot just to see if she had the same reaction, because, like, I mean, like, I just don't understand how this passed through so many hands, how many people like signed off on this being okay. It's very troublesome. I don't believe it almost. There's something with me that just feels like this really isn't the reality I live in. So it says comprehensive sexual education, or the many other ways this may be referred to as curriculum-based process of teaching and learning about cognitive, emotional, physical, and social aspects of sexuality. It aims to equip children and young people with knowledge, skills, attitude, and values that empowers them to realize their health, well-being, dignity, and develop respectful social and sexual relationships. I just feel like you should never really, I mean, I don't know. Okay, and it still continues. And then when you go and you continue to like read on, by the way, it begins to say that this is happening way too late. It's a dollar. What are they use an analogy talking about it being late, and they need to begin this at and kind of on average is at the age of 10 years old, but depending on some countries they need to be prepared sooner. It should be at the age of 8 years old. See, I specifically read through every single line because I wanted to see when they were going to explicitly reveal the ages that they find appropriate, because you know I'm a mom, guys, like my son's 8. There's no way in hell I would want him even thinking about these things, because at his age, it's not natural. And if it were like that's not a school environment where he's being, kind of offered a lot of suggestions as to what might be okay. It's a, and I don't want to go on a soapbox because sometimes I get a little I don't know. I get emotional about these things, but I do think that this is problematic. And it's going to really it took a lot of people to pull this shit off. And it's going to take a lot of people to really connect, put our minds together and figure out how we can combat this. It is coming down the pipeline. They are looking for ways to be able to kind of legislate all of these things. And when I say that, if you read my thread that I posted last week or the week before, regarding the decriminalization, it's just kind of it's another angle to the same issue. So go ahead with Love, jump in, and then we'll go to the lake and then Prometheus.
You're right, Maze. At that age, I'm sure over in China, they're like mapping the brain for AI, and we're over here trying to figure out our genders. I wanted to point out something about the books. They're so meticulously malicious because when what they did is very crafted. What they did is they took out books that we wanted to keep in schools and then introduced books that we didn't want in schools. So you created this war between people. Keep the books. No, get rid of the books. And it's just this back and forth, and so they might not even be able to see the two sides of what is actually happening.
Well, I think it's important to remember, again, people hyper focus on the situations that they want to argue over. These books or that books, or let's talk about, trans or gay or whatever it is. They have everybody zoomed in like on all this craziness when there's a very simple, the simple factor is if they make a law or try to pass anything that goes against our constitutional rights, then the Constitution is first and foremost. So anything else they try to do is, irrelevant. It's when you talk about anything going on with the UN or whatever, it bothers me in a way where, like, why are we even looking at stuff that is like that? Like, how is that intertwined? How do we get it out? It doesn't belong here. And it has to be stopped, like, immediately. Like, our Constitution supersedes all of that. So I don't know. It's freaky because people just are like, oh, this is happening, but what is it? Like, how is that happening? How have we got to this space? Because we need to just stop it. I'll shut up now. And I wasn't watching hands, so I don't know who's next.
I believe Prometheus was next. Oh no, it was where'd she go? Somebody lake.
Somebody, yeah, she went.
Oh.
She floated down into the somewhere.
Prometheus, Cat R, Indy, and then we'll circle back to Rob. Oh, and Citizen. Here, I'm gonna send you a co-host, Citizen, because I know this is your topic. Go ahead, Prometheus.
Thank you, Maze, and thank you for being the protective mama bear that you are. I just have so much love and respect for you. Like, words don't do it justice, and you too, Nikki. And guys, honestly, like, the best way to beat these perverts is to create an alternative, like Buckminster Fuller style. You don't fight the establishment head on. You create a new model that makes the old model redundant, right? And I'm going to take a leaf out of our guy, our G Elon Musk here, because him setting up his own private school, Astronova, like, my dream is to potentially go work there someday. Like, why don't we create something like that on scale for the world? Because this is, considering it's going on in the UN, this is an agenda for the world. This is an agenda to get kids out wherever they're going to potentially be able to get their ugly hands on, right? And so, one of the first things my parents taught me, I'm sure you guys learned it as well. And by the way, that's such an innocent age. Don't you guys miss that age? Like 5, 6, 7, 8. It's such a beautiful, innocent age. How dare they? How dare they ruin? Like, I remember having puppy love at that time. You know what I mean? Like, just, little crushes, like with classmates and stuff like that. Like, that was a cute time. And, as though kids, childhoods aren't ruined enough with increasing technology and having to, go through years of learning useless shit that you can more or less learn from the internet any day, Like, it's just, it's just unbelievable, and it's happening here in the UK as well. You know, you're seeing these freaking, you know, minor attracted books on you know, this is how to give a blowjob, you know, to kids. What the fuck? You know, like this is actually, like, this is the dystopian world we find ourselves in. So, you know, just going back to solutions again, I say, you know, we create a better educational alternative. And by the way, highlight, right, as a advertise, but you know, do you not want your kids to learn about sexuality by, you know, at schools or whatever? Well, here we have a proper sexual education at, you know, what, when they're teenagers, right? When you're actually ready to learn about that and when your body is actually changing. And by the way, there's some proper, healthy sexual teaching, love teaching, relationship building teaching that actually needs to be in real schools, right? How to actually, you know, create real trust between people, not just jump in because I found you hot and you found me hot while we were both drunk, you know, like like, not, there's so many of our years and, you know, healing, I would say, would never have happened if we'd actually learned about love, right? The art of love, right? And that actually there are many kinds of love. There's monoamory, there's polyamory, there's, you know, there's these different forms. And yeah, and these are things, by the way, you know, I've been researching and working on for years, learning about how to transmute, for example, sexual energy. Like, for example, I'm sure you guys have learned some of these tantric techniques, but I'll just share this one. You know, we live in a hypersexualized culture, right? Like, I, as a man, like, we're bombarded with like these pictures of, you know, women, naked clad women and all that time. And so next time you find yourself like unhelpfully turned on, right? Not in a proper intimate setting, man or a woman, just breathe, like breathe into that region of your body, like, and then as you exhale, feel the energy like just moving throughout your entire body, and slowly breathe. Just, if someone had taught me just slow breathing, changing that energy as a teenager, that would have saved me years of wasting my energy on stupid things like porn and all these other things that are ruining kids' lives right now, you know? So we do need to stop with this hypersexualization of children and young people. We need to teach them real skills about creating real healthy intimacy and real friendship and real trust. And yeah, I'll land my space rocket there. Thanks.
Thanks, Prometheus.
Can I jump in real quick, Maze, or did you want
Yeah,
to speak
I
first?
just a statement to say that now that we are having access to all of that and it is online, I think we as parents need to figure out how to mitigate that thing. But yeah, go ahead, Citizen, jump in, and then we can tap in on that later.
I want to go before he goes because he's going to know more than me about this, but really quick, when it comes to things regarding school, I feel like there's not enough time for the basic subjects. So overcomplicating your K through 12 in any way, shape, or form with this type of thing seems like it's inappropriate. I think it should be into, if you want to go into like college studies where this is something that you may want to like focus on or learn about or whatever, then that might be the appropriate time. But yeah, go ahead, Citizen.
No, and I think you make a very valid point, Nikki. And so, Prometheus, when I hear you talking, I understand exactly where you're coming from. And in this kind of setting, it makes perfect sense to kind of broaden out the conversation and talk about some of these things in depth. But when you talk about interjecting some of that content or some of those topics into school, how is that different than what they're already doing? It's just a different perspective of love. It's a different perspective of what should be taught in certain scenarios. And so one of the things that I really, when it comes to messaging, this is like one of my biggest just focuses, right? Like, how can we be matter of fact? Because the facts, the science with the harms of transitioning, you know, changing from male to female, female to male, those concerns and real medical harms potentially, they exist. And that's strong enough. And the other day I heard Moms for Liberty doing an interview, and they described some of the things that were going on in the book and sexual activities and this and that. And they came in really strong at the end and said, and this isn't trans, this is male and female. It doesn't matter. It's obscene. Right. And so they're because when we go in with the culture and how dare you with the children, and how when we try to tap into that, well, there's a whole nother perspective, sets of eyes that see the compassion for trans rights and things of that nature as just as important as what we see on certain things that we have our perspective with, right? And so we have to be very careful about falling into that consistent trap of the culture war, because that's exactly what they want us to focus on. And so the matter of fact approach and winning that conversation, and the data privacy and the data mining that's going on in schools with the surveys and things of that nature, that's how I think we can maybe bend the conversation and maybe make the conversation more welcoming to some of these parents who aren't necessarily as active as we are, and maybe don't even know where to start. And when they're hearing, all of these different culture war topics, and it's hard for them to lean in any capacity. So I just kind of want to say that and stop there.
Yep. And what happens is then we're like, oh, we're going to allow that religion to be taught, then we have to teach about this religion. It becomes a giant pissing contest. And again, it's not about, it's about focusing on the basics. People forget about the basics. Like, that's where you have to start. Because once you start mixing, if you put your steak salad or a steak dinner into a blender, how are you going to turn it into like a steak dinner again? Like, you're already fucked. So you have to try to not do that. And we're plugging in the blender. We've got our steak dinner on our plate, and we're ready just to put it in a blender, and then we're going to be fucked. So we have to do it before that. And I don't know how we're going to do that, but it needs to happen.
So, I'm about to come to you, Kat, in just a second. I think the reason why I want to kind of wait to have the more elaborate conversation around this is because it's really going to take some anchoring and really just, kind of suspending any of my, there's we're in a new world, and we have to figure out how to mitigate the exposure anyway. I mean, there's just that aspect of it that, when we were young, gosh, especially me being Persian, holy shit, it was such a big, never were we ever to talk about these types of things. And so I have to sometimes put that into perspective. I know that I grew up, in a certain way, and I shouldn't expect the whole world to be the same way that I grew up, and whatever. I do see that there's more challenges now in dealing with these types of things. But ultimately, when we talk about education, it's really.
So,
I'm sorry.
I'm posting on a country called Iceland, which has only 330,000 people to be exactly, and everyone might be visualizing where that is. And that main GDP would be in fishing and aluminum export, nothing else. Now, it has been ranked on one of the best, gender equality education systems in the entire world by UN on top. It has been the best sexual preference choices by adults and everything, one of the best countries. And it has been the third happiest country in the entire world. Now, on the gender equality things, if Iceland can hear or did hear the UN rules and regulations of gender equality properly, did the other countries didn't heard it properly? I'm not very much sure what religion or what Iceland practices or religion is directly involved in gender or not. I would like to take that back. Now, can we actually follow for another 5-10 years, where Iceland might actually happen on to be around 400,000 people only by another 10-15 years of population? Can we take that particular small group of people as an example? Thank you.
I am not quite sure. I couldn't really hear the audio. I think it's because I'm outside or something. Could you guys hear everything he said? Can you repeat like what you said about Iceland? They went and they put what in the school systems, and then how did it turn out, and use them as an example?
Can I keep it in a minute?
Yeah,
Again?
yeah. Please.
Iceland is the best ranked UN on three things. One of the things is best gender equality education between children to 15 years adolescents, and it's been ranked the best of having best sex liberal choices between adults more than 15, 18 till 25, 35, and they're the happiest nation ranked by UN of the entire world. Can we actually take the model of Iceland of 330,000 people as an example of this particular UN formations or what we are discussing right now, that the world has to be going forward for another 10, 15 years like this? I might be entirely wrong, but yeah, I kept my facts out there when we are trying to.
We don't do
Hold
what the
on a
UN
second.
says
Hold
we
on a
need
second.
to do.
Please do not interrupt. I'm sorry. We're having a conversation. It's a serious matter, and I want to treat everyone with respect, okay? And I didn't move you. I'm assuming somebody else must have shut you down. So okay, I understood what you said this time. I would say that it, to me, because the UN is responsible for the report that I just read and the stuff in it, I wouldn't necessarily trust the data in terms of happiness. Like, how do they know how happy they are, and how do they know? Like I just feel like, of course, they're going to represent it that way, and ultimately, like, by the way, guys, I have no problem with trans people having rights. I have no problem with, I think that's absolutely important that everybody has rights. I mean, every single person, including parents, including kids. Like, I don't think that what is being introduced to children at an age of as young as 5 years old is conducive for their I mean, it's not about their rights. It's a suggestion that's being made that potentially God makes mistakes and is able to accidentally put a girl in a boy's body, and that, and I just feel like ultimately is fundamentally wrong on all levels. And at one point I thought it was like, how can they ignore the amount of information and data that they have on life cycle development of children? I took those classes when I was in college, and it is very clear that they're moldable clay at that age. That's the most prime age of their learning and their foundations to who they're going to become, right? And so ultimately, there is this suggestion that is being made that, this is a possibility, and then, it's also kind of under the guise of empathy. I just don't, now I'm beginning to look at it differently. It feels like that they have taken social behavior sciences and weaponized it, psychology, all of these things. And it's now being, this is, I think, it's just being weaponized, and it's being used against, I think, and I know this always leads to the question, why would they do that? That's a whole nother topic. I definitely would love to explore that when we do have the larger space, but thanks for adding that information, Indy. Let's go to Kat, and then we'll go from there. Go ahead, Kat.
Hi, Maze. Thank you so much for letting me talk. I love your spaces. And follow up what you said, it amazes me that so many adults don't understand children. I mean, like, everybody I thought in college had to take the basics of child development. And having raised two successful adults, having two grandchildren, I'm really disturbed. I'm really disturbed by the education system as a whole, because I believe we do it wrong. I think we should start our children when they're very, very young with constructive play, in which we kind of weed out what their interests are and focus more on their interest. Children love, they're natural with things like science. I mean, being able to go outside with your child and do scientific things excites them. They love that. And as for this, like, push for the trans thing, I think that it's an ideology that is, like you said, molding young children and confusing them. It has no place in early development and early learning. They come in with the guise of social emotional learning, but really social emotional learning should be focused more on how to live together, how to get along with other people, how to, project love first, and not, it shouldn't have anything to do with sex. My question is, when they come out, these organizations like the WEF and the UN, when they make these suggestions or whatever they are, how does that get into our legislation when we didn't vote for these things? Like, personally, I think the education system is a racket and should be torn down. We keep lowering standards. We are not focused on what the individual child's interests are. We're not interested in developing their minds. I mean, when we went to school, it was reading, writing, arithmetic, science, and history. And those were the foundations up until like the 5th grade. And as far as sex ed, I remember our sex ed classes were about the 6th grade, and it was more about your body, hygiene, how a baby's made. It wasn't talking about sexual interests or all of these other things. And I think those conversations can happen a little bit later, maybe in high school, but they should be focused. Someone was talking about sexual energy, and that is a very real thing. And I know, some people like to come at it with a moral compass and all, but if we focus on the individual and their sexual energy and learning to channel that energy into being creative, into being scientific, into developing things, the world would be a better place. So how do we fight something that is on a global scale affecting the whole world and somehow linking into our education system? Like, how do we stop the education system with its funding and all of its craziness from just being regular citizens? How do we do that? And how do these ideas come into this?
That's an excellent question, and one that I've also worked very hard to track and trace. And what I found is that it's got a complicated answer, but I can tell you what I have tracked so far. I'm sure that there's much more to it, but there, what we're in terms of the framework, like the critical race theory, and in terms of the SEL, those things, like, so at there's these tax exempt organizations, 5013Cs. They are essentially funneling money, like, and by the way, so the IPPF is International Planned Parenthood Federation. They are a sub organization to the UN and affiliated to UNESCO. And so they a lot of this comes from their, like, the funding, so there's like these organizations that fund the IPPF, that fund all of the DNC, which is Democratic National Convention, and then it goes straight into the Department of Education. And in order for people to receive their Article 9, they have to adopt this framework, and they have to push this curriculum in the schools. And so it's all kind of going through the Article 9. um and that's what's, it's crazy. They literally have action items for our Congress. Okay. They have in their meeting minutes, when you go and you look at the foundation's meeting minutes, and what they are, like, how they basically say that the states, and how at the state level they have to adopt this in order to get this extra funding, or otherwise. Like, actually, let me go pull it up and I'll read it to you. It's mind boggling. Like, how is that okay? So the best way, I would assume right now, just with what I know, would be to figure out a way to we need to figure out a way to, like, really put a leash on these organizations. And in fact, if only we really talked about all of the things that they're involved in, it'll blow your mind. It's crazy. They literally are, this is lobbying um at its finest, and it is highly organized. and they're very connected, and it's just fascinating to see how they've been able to pull off what they have so far, and nobody really has been able to figure out what's going on. I think now that's what's really cool about these spaces is because, we put our heads together and bring puzzle pieces. But ultimately, that's what I've found so far to help answer that question. But it is a much bigger question, and it has a lot of moving parts to it.
So really quick, I want to add to that. And when you talk about the different foundations, that's one of the digs I really would love to get into, because the Soros foundations, there's so many different ones. It's not just like, your old Soros guy, you've got the relatives are all involved in that. And like, yeah. So that whole rabbit hole, but he's definitely connected to the STL. Also, there is a bill currently, I don't know where it is in the stages of going through, to get rid of the Department of Education, which may kind of take out a little bit of that dirty money. But yeah, the dirty money is huge. The foundation, they launder money around, they try to get their agendas in, whether it would be through education or law, justice, whatever, your attorney generals, judges, prosecutors, anywhere there's an issue, you can look up that particular name, find out who supported them, who gave them money, and I guarantee you 99.99% of the time, it's going to lead to some sort of, foundation that is one of the 501c3s that the Dems set up. Go ahead, citizen.
Yeah, I know we've got a few hands. I'll try to keep it quick. And so the story that was just kind of told right now in broad strokes by Maze and Nikki, I mean, it highlights how deep it is at every level, red or blue. And so when we see the culture wars that are going on, and we see these Republican elected representatives who will give you a PR opportunity type of speech, and maybe they'll ban a few books or whatever the case, whatever is the catchphrase of the moment, right? Behind the scenes, there are layers upon layers upon layers of just money moving around and decades and decades worth of planning. And I mean, when you think about Common Core, No Child Left Behind, and all these different marketing schemes that they use to pretend that they want to actually educate our children. I mean, when you look at the advancements in technology alone, and the way that our educational system has lagged behind, and then you look at the effects that COVID had on the educational system, right? Instead of trying to play catch up in basic reading and writing, we're starting to integrate CRT and social emotional learning, and so it's more about gender and race and studying these kids and data mining, and it's so upside down that I think it's too big for most people to be able to accept. And so being able to summarize that very simply is a huge challenge. So, that's what we're up against.
Okay, let me just make it clear. I did not move you, Chris. You're welcome back up here. I swear to God, it wasn't me. I was just saying, let's let him talk. Anyway, I sent you an invite to come back up. Okay. I put the meeting minutes that I was telling you guys about inside that thread that I had started. But if you specifically go down to section, I think it's D. Action items for local and state business and philanthropic leaders. Hold on, no. And then action items for state governments. Okay. This is from the Kauffman Foundation. This is from, one of those 501 5013Cs. To encourage, okay, this is their action item, to encourage city and county officials and business leaders to make the best use of social impact finance. This is kind of related to social impact finance, which is actually very related to SEL because it has to do with the data mining and all the stuff that they will be collecting and putting on the blockchain for each child. That's a whole nother topic as well. And that's kind of the area that I specialize in because I really went down the rabbit hole in this. So they, for social impact finance to promote near-term school readiness and long-term workforce strength, governments should one, authorize by statute and regulation state agencies, school districts, and other government entities to enter into contracts with social impact bond capital partnerships. 2, authorize state entities to rebate cost savings and or revenue increases to social impact bond partnerships as provided for the partnering contracts. And these are outcomes-based contracts, guys. And 3, establish criteria for SIB issued debt to income tax exempt. Now, action items for the federal government. This is again coming from these rich foundations. The federal government provides funding to states under federal law for many state-provided services such as special education. If a SIB capital partnership reduces state spending on the whatever, Congress should authorize by statute and regulation federal agencies to enter into contracts. So my point is like, this is just one example of many that I just quickly was able to access, but to show you how we are seeing these things come down the pipeline from the global level into our government and into our school systems. It's absolutely crazy, you know? Yeah.
I was going to say really quick, I've looked into 501c3s before. I thought about getting a 501c3. For something even as basic as a thrift store, let's say, for example. So, if you do a model with a 501c3, whether it be a thrift store, church, anything of that nature, you're not for profit. But what that means is, let's say you have X amount of dollars for your overhead, and then you have to pay for your rent, you have to pay for your employees, you have to pay for everything. So you can designate whatever amount you want to spend for all those things. You pay yourself, anything. So at the end of all of your overhead and what you pay out, what's left would be what would be donated to the charity that was designated when you did your 501c3. If that makes any sense.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for adding that. Go ahead. Think modern, and then
let's get Chris because he fell out of the.
Chris. Oh, he's back up. Yes, Chris.
Yeah, let's get him first because he fell out, and then we'll go modern. The new guy Rob, and then Prometheus, if that's okay.
I'd just like to simplify everything for you. Like I was telling Nikki earlier, if it's contrary to the Constitution, it's repugnant on its face. If we didn't make it happen by voting it, it's not applicable. The UN, NATO, whatever you want to call it, the world, idiot farm, doesn't matter to us. We need to take back control of our country and implement the Constitution that we established this country with. So whatever the stupid stuff that's happening now, we need to stop. We need to stop getting wound up in the little minutiae of it and implement basic operating procedures, reinstall DOS or whatever it is we're running in this country on, and just go by that. If we get caught up in the, hey, we have to do this because our city council said that they would take the money, so we have to put the kids in masks now. Whatever that is, it's all bullshit. We need to get rid of the bullshit, and if we don't, we're going to get stuck in that.
But so that's the thing. On the most simplest level, you're absolutely right. We need to get rid of the bullshit. I think we're kind of trying to put the scuba gear on and go deeper and try to figure out how. Where's the money coming from? How are they pulling this off? And we're seeing that they have infiltrated our Congress. I mean, there's literally people that are placed in as leaders of nations, okay,
100%.
from these global organizations, and they are passing these policies. They're written at the global level. Everything is literally the same, and it's just kind of tweaked a little bit. Like, for instance, even the Restrict Act had a parallel for Canada, and it had that, and it was coming through the pipeline at the same time. But Canada, Trudeau is literally 100% on board. So is Biden. But so it's really easy for them to be able to get it in with the people that we voted for. You know what I'm saying? To make
Yes.
those decisions, and that's a problem.
Back when Obama first got elected, we saw this starting to implement itself into the different city levels and so on. And they weren't government agencies, they were private organizations that were brought into the fold by the lure of money and the willingness to listen to them and follow their instructions. Okay. So this is, I've been dealing with this for a long time, and that's where we sold out our country. And the key here is fraud. Once fraud has been committed, everything is mute. Doesn't matter anymore. Back to zero. And that's what's happened here, whether you want to go to the Constitution or the UN or China buying property in the United States or the elections. It's always fraud, brings it back to the beginning of stupid. It's stop and bring it back. And whether it's Biden being the president and what he's passed since then, do you understand what I'm saying? It's if you go back to the basic fraud that was committed, that starts from back then. It cleans the slate, everything that was passed, and so on.
Okay, I guess maybe the part that I'm unclear on is like time travel. I mean, like, how do you suppose that we go back and
We
like,
can't. But what we can do is stop going by what they're trying to tell us we have to go by.
And how do you suggest we do that?
We just do it. We take back our country. We send our consent to be governed by this tyrannical government.
You know, Chris, I'm with you in principle, okay? But I'm just going to say right now, I think if there's anything that has been proven over the last 3 years with COVID, is that the Constitution has been trampled on in the courts by our Congress people, by state legislatures. I mean,
You're 100% right.
we are also at the mercy of lawyers and their ability to execute and their ability to really put together convincing cases, and then we got to go a little deeper, okay? Because I'll tell you right now, there are a lot of smiling faces who do not necessarily have our best interest in mind, and to think that there aren't actors in there maybe potentially misleading us, and I would even say in some situations taking on cases and intentionally losing. I guarantee you at some point, and I can't prove it, but I guarantee you in my heart that has happened during COVID more than once. So
You're 100% right.
I hear what you're saying, Chris. I'm with you, but I'm just saying we also have to really look strategically at how we can identify these holes and where they may have left the door open for us to potentially execute what you're talking about and actually standing up for our rights. So,
okay. Right now, we're getting rid of Dominion and Smartmatic because they broke the law, and only that they violated their contract, and they can't fight the insurance clauses that are in there. So we're starting there. But what happens is if we start tomorrow or a year from now, we have to have a beginning point. A beginning point has to always come back to the point of origin of what did we agree on this country running on? The Constitution. We can go back to that and we can say, okay, from now on, what's constitutional carry? We all understand what that means, right? And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying there's going to be some problems, but I'm saying that is our basic running operating procedure for this country to run on. We know how to do that. It's basic and it's simple.
Okay, so you know what? Can I just chime in here? I appreciate you, Chris, and I agree. I will say this, right? For the most part, fundamentally, what you're saying is correct. And in fact, I wanted to go get more familiar again with our Constitution, and I held spaces on that for weeks. I mean, it was an amazing, divinely put together panel of people who were very, very interested and passionate about the Constitution. And we talked about all this at great depth. What the conclusion I think that we got from that is that yes, there are, I guess, all types of potentials of being able to kind of uphold our Constitution in various ways. However, what we're seeing right now, I'm sorry, somebody has their mic open. Okay, what we're seeing happening now is that there is like we're too connected globally, meaning like we actually can't just isolate ourselves in our own little bubble and say, okay, we have our Constitution. And so, the hell with every other country in the world that has to deal with these things coming down the pipeline. Because then what's going to happen is that this one little piece of pie, this one little piece of pizza, okay, is going to be protected when the rest of the pizza is infected. And then eventually it's bound to come over here too, especially if this continues to become the culture, the change that we're seeing they're trying to push down. If that in fact does happen everywhere, we have a problem. And also, on top of that, I think, we need to begin looking into international law. Right now with the UN, they consider a lot of the stuff that they're putting out as, international law. However, of course, they basically prep what they're like everything that I've read, and even the one in my thread. I have a great thread on the decriminalization piece. Their audience is judges, policymakers. They're going to hand that off to the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum then pulls in all of their the public and the private partnerships and pulls them together to kind of make it happen, right? And so I think that we have a much larger issue than that, and I think that that's perfectly okay to work on, simultaneously. But I think that we need to also have our eyes on how do we navigate international law. I don't know. Maybe we should start having some spaces on that, pulling in some people who could speak to us about that.
You're totally right.
Yeah, and figuring out also how to, to go for the jugular. I really do think that these tax exempt organizations need to be looked into. There's no oversight. There's nobody that is looking like there's a huge conflict of interest, right? A lack of transparency, and there's so much that's happening without any oversight. I think we need to also find a way to, look into that. And I think we're going to get a lot of, well, we can definitely make some headway at least.
They've intentionally overcomplicated this to make it difficult to unfuck. So
you're funny.
Totally true. Totally true.
Yeah. All right. So let's go to Modern, and then Rob, and then Prometheus, and then we'll go to the Lake. And well, actually, the Lake had the hand up a while ago, guys, and then they left and came back.
I think it says Jake Mays.
Jake. I'm sorry, Jake. I thought
put on those readers.
Oh, I'm just daydreaming. It's summertime,
I'm just kidding.
It's okay. I'm an old woman. My man's down there. He's probably like, "Yep, those woman years." Okay.
Got mine on. So it's okay.
Go ahead. Well, let's let Jake go first, and then we'll go to Modern. Go ahead, Jake.
It's all good. Jake's on the lake, so that's fitting. I was going to give you guys a kind of a starting point. You're talking about some of the responsible parties, the network that allows, this type of changes in policy to happen. And I posted it in the chat box, but there's a company called Neola, and they are the legal counsel for school policy change, school boards for 6 states. And if you'll notice the logo, it's a pretty obvious signal marker. It's a compass, which the CIA likes to flash around, kind of like a gang sign. So that's a great starting point to see how that network works and how those strings are pulled. That's all I got.
Can you send that to me via DM?
Yep, sure will.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
And then
it.
can you send it to me, Maze?
Yeah, of course, I got you. Absolutely. Okay, Modern, go ahead and jump in.
Hey, thanks for doing this space, guys. I feel like I learned so much when Maze is on the case because I get all this new information that I didn't get before. It does seem like all roads really do lead back to the WEF and BlackRock because BlackRock is the largest stakeholder of the WEF and hosts the event. And, you know, I can't say I'm surprised, but I think when it comes to the gender ideology and everything, I think two important pieces of information is that Planned Parenthood was hemorrhaging customers there for a while because they I guess not just because of Republican legislation and everything, but also because of increased education. People are just opting out for the more we learn about early childhood development, people were just becoming more skittish about abortions and just opting out from having them, and they were hemorrhaging customers basically. And I remember reading this Political article a while back about how they had changed their business model to focus less on abortions, and they partnered with a pharmaceutical company to be the world's largest, I guess, vendor of puberty blockers, and they decided to focus more on transitioning. And they were even bragging. I think the CEO was even bragging, like, we can make more money with less clientele if we focus on this sort of puberty blocking pharmaceuticals. And it was around the same time, I think this is like 2012, that Facebook acquired Instagram. And they applied their same marketing algorithm that Facebook used to Instagram. And Instagram is primarily a female domain. I mean, guys use it too, but it's mostly women. And once they applied this marketing algorithm to Instagram, they opened it up for special interest groups as well. And prior to, body dysmorphia has always kind of been an issue when it comes to social media and younger developing female populations. I worked in healthcare, so I remember back when cutting was like the main thing, but there's also anorexia and bulimia and just the general awkwardness of, coming of age seems to be exasperated by social media, not just with impossible standards, but with the sort of negative feedback loop that can be unhealthy, seems to be encouraged on these types of platforms. And so prior to Facebook acquiring Instagram, trans was overwhelmingly a guy thing. It was just, less than 1%. It was mostly male. Since Facebook acquired Instagram, it's now 400% more a female thing, women transitioning to males, and it seems to be linked to body dysmorphia. But the important thing about it is that as corporate funding, there's a big financial incentive. I mean, hospitals make $100K per transition, and there's always subsequent surgeries down the road as well. The pharmaceutical companies make money hand over fist the entire lifetime of the patient, and also importantly, in line with Planned Parenthood, there's also sterilization. Because Planned Parenthood was always about population control. And that's not a conspiracy theory. If you go back and read Margaret Sanger, she used to go to Ku Klux Klan rallies to garner quote unquote support for population control. She wasn't exactly hiding it. So that's my 2 cents. I think, we need to look at the money and follow the money, obviously, always, but there's definitely a technological component to it and a financial incentive component.
Actually, it's actually a good point you bring up with, it's really not a conspiracy, it's an actual set out goal that was even published by Friedrich S. Jaff. You can see a document on this, and in this document, the last page basically lays out any and all methods by which you can reduce the population, either through direct impact of legislation or just universality. It's really perfectly written out and is exactly what is happening now. Basically, the entire paper is an argument for why one should be reducing the population, and then basically at its last page, it tells you exactly how to do so. And this is where we are at currently. Just wanted to point that out.
Oh my God, Adrian, who's the name of this person, and where can I find this report?
Friedrich S. Jaff. I think I might have it somewhere. Hang on.
Okay, thank you so much. Kind of like
I want to jump in real quick.
Report. Oh yeah, go ahead.
It just occurred to me that maybe what needs to happen is there needs to be some sort, like, how could we get some sort of short documentary that really exposes some of, like, this document, let's say, which outlines it, and then putting images of what's really going on. You know what I mean? In real people. And somehow, if it could be distributed massively to the public, it would open so many eyes, because I feel like there's some of us that are really tuned in. Like, I was completely asleep until COVID, but are really tuned into what's going on around the world now. And we're so limited with the information. And thank God for Elon for giving us spaces. I mean, this is like the most profound thing that has happened, is opening up to the world where people can come together and try to defeat this evil force. But in that, like, you know, all the sci-fi movies where all of the TV channels are cut and then the guy comes on with the mask and starts telling the world what's really going on. Like, how do we get something that's precise enough and short enough but direct enough to hold the masses' attention and is somehow blitzed everywhere? You know? I don't know, it just occurred to me with that last conversation.
Oh yeah, by the way, I've linked the article in the comment of the tweet itself, so you can take that and put it into the featured section here, and so everyone can go read it. I personally will not say that, you know, that there's a conspiracy going on. Everyone can draw their own conclusions based off it, but I think it is important to point out that a lot of what is written in this document is what is currently being, you know, implemented. Whether or not it is a good idea to reduce the population or not is entirely up for debate. And I personally do not think it's necessary, but I mean, if you do want to reduce the population, at least do it in such a way that you don't fuck us all. That's my personal opinion on this situation. Like, I think, yeah, sure, if you want to reduce the overall stability of a population in general, you have to destroy its various many societies, and you have to basically create massive chaos, and then the strongest survive. It's basically social Darwinism. Whether or not this is a good thing for the world is a question that I do not necessarily want to ask, nor I want to really explore, because it's a moral issue as well, to think that one has the right to influence other people's lives to such a degree that you have an actual malicious intent towards them. Whether that intent be somehow rooted in the end of something good is entirely up for debate. But regardless of what is going on, I think it is always important to read, and whether or not this is a negative thing, it is important to basically, you know, be scientific in a sense, right? Like, assess everything, see where you can go with this. Like, I would have not found this article or even read it if it wasn't for my curiosity and say, you know what, maybe there's something interesting to this. And this is an important article because this is at the heels of a very specific set of events. This was published in 1969, and in the 1980s, specifically 1988, there's this documentary made by the BBC. It's called Around the World in 80 Days. And within this documentary, there was one episode where they went through America, right? And it was really fascinating to see how America was in its 80s, right? And so basically, when he went through America, he traveled on a train, right? And he spoke with various people there. And you could see that in the contrast with other countries, the first thing everybody talked about was divorce And then there was a younger woman that talked about exactly what is damaging most family units today. And that is basically to ensure that you basically give your life to a career, and then at the end of this career, you then start a family, which most people cannot do because they've basically already given their life so deep into this type of career that they cannot figure a way out. And why would you want to? I mean, you basically have stress full at a time, and the only reward you've ever gotten for that stress was a result from your work. Now, how do you factor a child into this? It requires amazing willpower, and sometimes you even make it, and those people are tough as nails, all right? Or they have a remarkably dysfunctional household. It's a very abstract thing to see, but that is generally where it started. I think in the 80s it really started to pick up. Then the 90s it started to influence the future generation, and then it led into the 2000s and where we are currently, with this current generation being born into a world that is completely sanitized and has sources of information everywhere. There's not really any drive for anyone to do what, for instance, many of our ancestors have done, like go out into nature, because everything is accounted for. You have your knowledge provided to you directly on your screen. You don't have to go anywhere. You barely even have to lift a finger. You're taught in school to be docile, and I mean, that's just the way things are. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's frightening to see at the same time, but it's also important to know where its origins are. And at the end of the day, I think to the best of our abilities, we need to forge our own paths in our own lives and decide what's best for ourselves. And whether or not there are groups that you can agree with and rally behind, that is an open topic, really. I think what we're doing here is basically we are trying to encourage people to be resistant. My thing is just open your eyes and look around. That's it. You come to your own conclusions, and whatever your own conclusions are, that is how the world will be for you, and that is how you will make the world for others. Yeah.
Well, I mean, actually, no. So you definitely added you added a whole this like kind of the kaleidoscope. You click it and it just kind of changes a little, and it's an interesting perspective. So we are entering an age where people are trying to the goal is definitely longevity, and in fact for some even immortality. And so it does make sense that they're going to have to offset that with something that would have to be sacrificed, which is reproduction. I mean, you can't continue to reproduce if in fact what is being kind of publicized as the major goal is to increase the the life's the number of years in your life, and then also some to just never die. I mean, and
Actually, this is a very interesting point, because I think what you're describing is a type of offset to this, right? To this ever increasing growth if you were to actually have a longer period of life. This offset already exists in the form of terrible nutrition. Have you noticed that at least 50 to 60% of any given country's population is obese? And this is almost universal across all countries of the world. There are exceptions, obviously, but it is frightening to see. In some of the developing countries, you have an amazing rise in diabetes cases, so much so that some companies have even decided to import wheelchairs and crutches because they are in such high demand. You have these countries which are supposedly poor and suffering from starvation, but people are the size of, well, two people. And that is not because they are eating a lot, it is because they're eating the wrong things. And before the modern world had any impact there, these people lived their lives, and they sometimes didn't even live beyond 60. So I think we today, sure, it has become much easier to live, and that is why I think there already do exist certain offsets. You make a very interesting point with seeking immortality. I think personally, extending one's life will become increasingly difficult, especially with the expenses needed with eating healthy and the effort one must go through in order to actually acquire those things. Like, a lot of the time you look at the bills you'd rack up if you were to eat entirely organic, right? It's really impressive to see, and I'm glad that there are actually companies out there that do provide this type of stuff, but at the same time it's becoming exceedingly difficult. So I think that offset that you're mentioning always exists, And this is one of the ways in which it does. Basically, telling the youth, you can literally go around, fuck around, do whatever you want. We have contraceptives, there are no consequences. You can take a few drugs, not so many, then you're all good. And you can basically, if something does go wrong, if our medication fails, you can take out the fetus, and that is the end of the story. So I think there's no more ideals with what is going on today. And the lack of ideals is actually the true downfall, which is going to reduce the population drastically. Even in Japan, we are seeing this happen already. And so I think, just like you've mentioned, the longevity itself is offset with all these problems put in its way. So yeah, life is difficult, and it's become more difficult in different ways. Back then, you'd probably have difficulties keeping your house from having a leak in it, or keeping it insulated well in the winter, or getting a food supply or water supply if you're in a foreign country. But now it is basically ideological survival and being able to navigate the complexity of the world, which is also why I think AI is seen as such a major threat, because it allows for the aggregation of massive amounts of information to such a point that an average person can understand it, which is very difficult to do. You normally need a person to interpret the information for you, right? But then AI has its own issues, but that's another topic.
AI is always weaved into all my topics, and thanks for it's related to everything. And I think it's earlier we had a space on just it shaping. Ooh, I can't wait to get your perspective on this, but I don't want to derail too far. Matter of fact, I'm going to get through the hands first, but about shaping perspectives. There was some interesting stuff that I heard. I'm gonna run it by you as soon as we get through these hands. But go ahead, Citizen,
Perfect.
jump in first, and then sorry, go ahead, Adrian. What did you say?
Oh no, I was just saying perfect. Thank you. Go ahead.
Sure. Go ahead, Citizen, jump in first, and then we'll go to the other one.
Yeah, and I know there's some people with their hands up for a while, so I'll real quick. With what Adrian is saying and describing, I mean, you can just see how easy it is to go broad, right? Because all of these different topics and all of these different things do really connect, right? Because all of these industries, they get looked at individually, but in the end, the people in the UN, the people that are pushing the policy, what they're pushing is for all of those industries and all of those dots to intertwine, right? Internet of Things, Internet of Bodies, right? And the educational system. I'll wrap it up with this. There's so many parents out there. There are so many people out there who are trying to just put food on their table, get by on a daily basis, live a decent life. And the amount of hours they have in a day to actually lean in, participate, it's pretty minimal. And so what I'm trying to think of is how do we get them to just take at least a small step locally at their school district or their county board of supervisors? So, as broad as he just made it sound, and as many good points as he just made, there's also a need to bring it back in just a little bit every once in a while too. And so, thank you for all those thoughts, Adrian. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Maze.
Yep. Go ahead, Rob. It was you next anyway.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. I mean, we went all over the place, a lot to unpack. I mean, the issue I think people got to look at is, and it goes back to your original point, the discussion was on, the desexualization of what was going on in our schools. And if you throw 800 things on the table, right, you're never going to get to one or two of them. The old adage is if you want to eat an elephant, start one bite at a time. So each topic's got to stay contained. I mean, it does interconnect to other things. Right, so you have to be very careful about you get in these conversations. The next thing you know, you're talking about healthy living, and and the fact that people are installed and not elected, and so you go down all these multiple paths. If you want to start attacking the problems, you got to do them one at a time. Somebody asked, well, what's your solution? It's pick a topic and go after it. If you take 50 topics, it turns into that old adage, right? Jack of all trades, master of none. So if your topic is dealing with education, then focus on the education system and see what we can do to get control of it. Right? We know that the plan is to confuse things. If you want to look at the downfall of civilizations, how do you downfall it? You homogenize it. You make language, multiple languages, so there's no unity. You attack the children. You attack religions. There's numbers of things that you do. You break the economies down so that people have nothing to fight with. If you step back and look at what's going on globally right now, the bastion, it looks like, of centerness or control that they can't get their hands on is currently in the United States. That's why they're doing all these things here to try to attack us. They're doing in other areas. So I think, again, we have to focus on one thing. I'm going to ask a question that focuses maybe back on the topic you originally started with, which is, in that UN document that you were reading, is any of that in there talk about the education of the children in this type of a topic? Is it to protect them? Because we have societies that do rituals and other things that go on that can create, problems or havoc for children at younger ages. And are they trying to hide behind that type of a, shall we say, that type of a verbiage and projection to say basically, well, we're doing this to protect the children, to educate them earlier? Did you get into any? I didn't have a chance to look at the document. Maybe.
That's an excellent question, and I already have an answer for you. So I did look for that. I specifically wanted to see the age that they call it it's a there's a certain phrase. I'm gonna go look it up in a second. But anyway, they don't believe in a minimum standard age. It's like, as it's a, people are gonna grow into their age, and whenever ready, then that's them. They can consent, and so there's the decriminalization aspect of it. But when it comes to the comprehensive sexual education, that is specific curriculum. Now, each state is different, and so they do have different, depending on, like, there's just, funneling it in is one thing, but I think that each by state they tweak it from there. Now, around your question specifically, they are saying that it is to better equip them for healthier relationships, to prevent unwanted pregnancies, and also, like, but it did not to protect them from pedophiles. Or, I mean, there was this one section that said teaching them about the private parts so they know their boundaries, but I think that was kind of like the younger ones. But really, the whole comprehensive sexual, there was only just one little section that said at a much younger age, so like under 8. It was just teach them about their private parts so that they can know their boundaries. But then anything between 10 and 14 is where the major comprehensive sexual education, they're stating their cases that it needs to happen much earlier than it has been taught. And because it's, there was some analogy, I think a day late and a dollar short. Somebody put it in the thing to help me out. They use that analogy, saying that they needed to move the age back to some places 8, other places 10 to 14, and then also anything below 8 would be to help them learn their own boundaries. And that was, so there's a whole bunch. I put a lot of links in there. The International Planned Parenthood Federation. I read through most of that. The other one that's like, so that one was like 86 pages. But before I have the elaborate space on it, I'm going to go through it in detail and definitely highlight specific things that we can read through together. And I just to say this real quick, because I get it. I know that it's such a broad, there's everything from the depopulation to, I mean, all the things that we're they're very interconnected, and we do tend to traverse the little side streets and then not really find our way back to the topic. But I am extremely passionate about the children specifically. There might not be much I can do about the depopulation agenda, but I just feel like when it comes to innocence, when it comes to children, when it comes to what the world will like it's not even about me anymore. I have a son. I just have to plant trees for which I may never experience the shade. We just have to do something, for the children. They didn't ask to be a part of all this. And I get it. I mean, when they're older, they're on their own, but this is very important to me. So, but thanks, Rob, and I will be sure to invite you when I do the elaborate space. So I believe who is next? I think is it Johnny and then Caroline and then back to Kat.
No, it was Caroline first.
Oh, Caroline. Thank you, Johnny. Caroline, then Johnny, then back to Kat.
Good morning, Maze, and thanks for having the space, and thanks for having the space at a time where I can be awake for it. God bless you. I appreciate it. Yeah. And thank you, Nikki, for co-hosting, and Citizen also for co-hosting. I know it's not an easy job, and I respect it, and I'm grateful for the space's host. So I have a few comments. I grew up in Southern California in the 60s and 70s, and it was the absolute blueprint, this sort of thing that's going on now. But early on, my father died when I was really young, and that left me wide open to the school. The school took over. This is way back when. This is like in the 60s and 70s. And like to what Adrian was saying, and it was right at the height of the women's movement. And all the things that he was saying was absolutely happening. They were like, early. I mean, I was early, like 9 years old, and they were talking, you're your own girl, don't have kids, don't get hooked up to anybody. It was like the sexual revolution. I was really young. I just thought the adults were crazy, because they probably were. And, my mom was a hardcore liberal, and I survived that, and I'm grateful for that. And I think that she did the very best she could. And the very best she could was kind of not that great, but I do believe that she loved me and she did the best she could. So I live with forgiveness on that. And she's just a human being, but it was extremely damaging. She, put that ideal into my head. I don't need a man, and you can do everything yourself. But then yet she also was like, go out and find yourself a rich man. So it was very double-minded talk. It was very, very strange for me. I'm really grateful that I have this God-given into it that was, instilled in me. I think it was my father's side of the gene pool. And, I always was suspicious, like something's up, like this doesn't seem right. This isn't right. It doesn't seem right. And it caused me so much damage, and I made it through it. But, now we see, it's so much more overtly sinister, sexualizing the kids and robbing them of their light. I mean, that's who you are. I mean, people may agree with me, may not agree with me, but the way that I see it is, our sexuality is like who we are. Like we have horses and dogs, and that's what they're all about. They're all about living their life and being what they are and reproducing, and keeping that. We, as good stewards of animals, we keep that integrity, making sure that they don't inbreed and that there's not, we don't put animals together that are going to beat each other up and things like that, because it's not that kind of those are the type of animals that we have. And so, and I also wanted to say that, this is, I've lived long enough, and I'm a world explorer and not a vacationer, but an explorer. I got people all over the world. And, I really do believe that, I read a lot. This is just going to keep happening. This is part of like the world. I think in 1,000 years, we're going to have other issues if we don't kill society now. So I kind of look at it as, it's our turn to be in the barrel right now. These are our issues right now. And it's it's my responsibility to make sure that the next generation has a barrel, and they'll have to fight their way through some other sort of sinister thing that, the forces of evil, so to speak, are against us, And I really do believe that. And I believe we're in the fight of our lives. I know that I'm in a generation, I can't speak for other people. I know that I'm in a generation that I got absolutely a lot of freebies. Like I had this really kick-ass good life. Like I got to do a lot of really good stuff. And now it's time to pay the piper. Now it's time for me to stand up to the plate and say, wait a second, I'm not going to allow this crap because you've gone one step too far. It's live and let live. That's all cool. But you start screwing around with people's sexuality and kids and things like this, and making it so they can't reproduce. And even if they can't, even if they choose to reproduce later, they've made decisions now that stop them physically from reproducing. This cannot, this will end humanity. And this, so it's our responsibility, to, kick ass, take names and numbers, and, stop the bad guys the best we possibly can. And, the toughest will survive. Sadly to say, but that's just the way that it works. Those are just the facts. And then I wanted to, if you please just indulge me a little bit. I was up late on a space last night, and this gentleman, Adrian, was in also, and they were talking about AI, and they were talking about, all this other stuff, and free speech was the name of the space, pretty much so. But it got, like all spaces, hijacked to a degree, which is great. I love the free flowing. But the question that I really had was, my fear as being a political person in a political realm, and I would consider myself in it, is my fear is that, election is coming up in 2024, and they're just going to somehow, some way, some of these bad actor people are going to find a way to take down servers or something like that, and we won't have Twitter. Twitter's been a gift to all of us. This opening up of Twitter, where we can speak and we can share and we can Discord and we can come to solution, has been an absolute gift. And it was our First Amendment, and they ripped that out from underneath us. They ripped it out first for a reason, because that is what builds the best society, the strongest and the most robust society, and the most robust economies. So that's why they took it away from us first. And my fear is that they'll do it again, but via like servers and things like that. And I wanted to ask Adrian if he thought that that was going to happen, and did he know if anybody had a backup plan to that sort of bad action? Thank you for letting me hog the mic.
No,
And
you're
I
fine. And I like, of course, Adrian, you can answer it, but right after that we can kind of revert back, because I get very tempted on the AI discussion, and I will say that I was supposed to like kind of keep this space open for an hour, but I mean, I am interested in the answer to that for sure. I would love to know.
I personally don't know if anyone has a backup for any of this, honestly. Twitter's, at this point, the freest platform that exists out there. The only other platform that I can think of that exists out there is one that is very difficult to access, and one that would require you to be in deep with the community, so you know each and every one of them. You know what happens next. You have these weird cryptic messages for each other, and that's the dark web. Like, the dark web is an absolute free for all. Okay, like it's a terrible free for all. But then some forums also have a good free for all, right? Like, I think a lot of the times there were various things that were organized, such as protests and such, which it became very difficult to do this on social media. So I think a lot of the sources for this came from the dark web, right? That's why also a lot of people attack the dark web, because don't forget, basically Web3 is similar in concept to the dark web. It's just a different version of the internet, right? And the dark web is basically an area of the internet as it can always exist. Like, the internet isn't necessarily restricted to what you can see on your browser. The internet is whatever is connected to a network. And if you connect that network to the normal network, then you've got those two realms, normal internet and dark web. And the dark web itself is basically one that has no legislation. It's a space that has no legislation on it. Right? I mean, technically, of course, every space is legislation, really, but just on the dark web, nobody gives a shit, because everyone is like really high level on that. Like, they take rule breaking to huge obscenes. They have hackers on there that basically don't even hack for money sometimes, but rather would humiliate you. Like, there are cases where hackers would say, okay, you know what, I'm stealing all your information, your video camera is turned on, you will now sit on the floor and put a boot on your head and say a few words, and then we'll release your data. And they do this sometimes. Some of them are dishonorable and don't do it afterwards. So other ones, they just kind of like, oh yeah, we'll do it for you now. It's like, yeah, the dark web is crazy. But yeah, I think that would be the only backup. And once that time eventually does come, if that time comes, I think we've got a whole lot more to worry about than just, free speech, because if we'd have to resort to going on places like the dark web for information or for social contact, well, then we're the resistance. Then we pretty much made everything clear, and then we will be a dead center target of everything. It's like, that is a grim world I do not want to imagine, a grim world that I hope will never come to pass, a grim world that is just not good for anyone. It's basically Warhammer 40k without the guns, but it's all in cyberspace and nobody gets any freedom.
Yeah, and I think it's important, for me to not even invest my energy and my thoughts into that type of outcome, because honestly, I think there's a lot of power in our focus. And I don't see anything like that happening. I think that the world is very reliant on technology, and I think the world is very reliant, and I think that they share too much in terms of kind of infrastructure to really, there would probably be certain ways that you could take it out, but I just that's how I am, and I just offer that up as an alternative to really trying to focus on it, because I think when we feed it that energy, it will work itself into manifestation. That's kind of been my experience. And so, I don't know what's going to happen between now and time to vote, especially with all that happened last couple of elections, and even further back beyond that. There's always been some sort of, you guys remember where they recounted in Florida, and it was just, clearly there's an issue there. And when you think about where we are with technology, like, why do we have these mysterious boxes that we go? It's crazy. But I'm hoping that AI will maybe be provide transparency and a solution for this. And I think that we have brilliant people in our generation that will figure this shit out.
Yeah. Let me just jump on real quick. I also, this is what I'm doing, and I know that I'm not the only one, is I'm building like relationships, and I'm building small communities outside of Twitter, but via Twitter. You know what I mean? I'm sure you are too. Like, I've got, people's phone numbers, and we're, buddying up, and we are logistically hooking other people up in different areas, so that, if it does go down, or if we choose not to use the internet to speak, that we are in person and things like that. So thanks a lot again. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for giving me the mic, and I will yield. Thank you.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you for coming up and sharing. Who was it? I swear there was somebody else that was
It was me, but I forgot
yeah.
to put my hand up after I said it was Caroline.
Go ahead, darling. Jump in.
Well, okay. So back to what Adrian was saying about that 60s or 70s report about depopulation. So my father subscribed to this newspaper, and he had me read it, and I thought it was total conspiracy. It was about how David, that's not fair, but it was a very famous millionaire, multimillionaire, who was promoting this kind of stuff that now people accuse other famous people, wealthy famous people, of doing, to like eugenics. So I really did think it was a conspiracy theory, and I was young. I was still in my I think I was 19 when I read this. That was 40 years ago, just to dox myself. And here it is that this is what they're really doing. But I want to pop that bubble, and you can do the math yourself, and you can see that I am not lying. Take the total square footage of the state of Texas by the given total of UN numbers for the total population of the world, divide it out, and you will see that you could fit every single person on this planet in the state of Texas. And then you tell me that we're overpopulated. We're not. It's not about population, what it really is about. And I follow this man who's a professional miner, like not like the sand hogs that build the tunnel, under, the Hudson. I'm talking about real mining, big rigs. Like we're taking, and there's this documentary about, and they asked Bill Gates about it, about the number of children in China who go to work in factories. Like, I grew up on a farm in Kentucky. We raised tobacco, but we didn't miss school.
So, John, I just
Okay.
want to I want to briefly pause you. Not that I'm not interested in what you're saying, because I absolutely am. However, just to kind of not necessarily go too far down, I have these spaces, literally global affairs, which is kind
I
of the
know.
topic of this one. Do you come to them? Because I mean, this is where we totally expound on all of this. I tell everybody to bring their scuba gear, because we're throwing the snorkely stuff to the side and we go deep. But I didn't want to go too far away from this, because sometimes we lose our attention span on kind of the main topics, and then we don't really get beyond the surface. But I just wanted to ask respectfully, like, to definitely come. I'm going to follow you back. Oh, well, you're not even following me, but shit, now I'm following
I
you.
did.
Oh,
I
go
guess
ahead.
it said follow host. I pushed the purple
Oh
button.
my God, it's so funny when the call outs happen. Like, you're not even following the host. Like, what are you doing here with a speaker without following the host?
Well, I just wanted to just personally
Okay, you can
invite you
make fun
to
of me
the.
all you want.
I'm just kidding. We've been up. It's almost 8 in the morning, and we're just having fun with this. So it's all in the best fun. It's important, and I've learned too that it's important to subscribe, because that way you can see the posts, because they don't always show up. Sometimes we get buried. So if you do see somebody or hear somebody you want to interact with, make sure you turn on your notifications. So
Yeah, and just to respond to what you did say really quickly, is that absolutely, even Julian Huxley, who was the director general for UNESCO, okay, the company, the organization that we're talking about, he wrote this book. It was called New Bottles for New Wine. And that book is actually where the term transhumanism was coined, and he talks about it being literally the eugenics. The new eugenics will be moving. His exact words are something like the eugenics of yesteryear. Something, I don't remember the exact words, but basically is due to the advancement of technology. And he thinks that technology and transhumanism will literally be the new eugenics. And then that's kind of in alignment with what Dr. Yuval Noah Harari, who's a historian, you guys, I'm sure most of you have heard of him. He is saying that we're moving from evolution being that of natural selection, moving toward it being of intelligent design. So it's all related, I mean, I just wanted to say that to let you know that I totally feel you, and it's definitely all kind of intertwined and related. But I just kind of wanted to go over this educational stuff so that I can even end this, and I can send people to listen to this and be prepared for when we have the big one. So I didn't want to go through all the side streets, if that makes sense.
I get it, but I don't know how to explain it, but I've lived it, is what I was trying to express. Over 40 years. And I raised my children, and I watched them go from teaching reading. I watched in my youngest daughter, the math class changed from just simple reading, writing, and arithmetic to something that just totally changed math. They call it crisscross math. I'm like, I couldn't figure it out. And my point is, they are trying to upset the balance of how we raise our children. Oh God, I'm choking up because I feel so bad for my children. And what Adrian was saying about how they teach you, or they want you. And my second daughter, she's almost working on 40, and she finally got pregnant. And this is what they do. They want you to have your family or your career, and by the time you pick a man that you think you can live with, there aren't any available men. And then on top of that, you aren't able to, you take so long to have children, and you're worried about depopulation. It takes 2.1 average children for every woman just to stabilize the population. And Russia, China, they're all, and we are, if we weren't for immigration, we would be in population decline, which makes me wonder about the immigration policy of America. If they already know these things, I don't want to go down other rabbit holes. So
Yeah, let's
I'll just be
put it.
quiet and
Yeah,
listen, okay?
put a pin right there, because I want
Yes.
to check. I want to check on our co-host fell out. I want to check on Adrian to see if he can still speak.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can still speak,
Okay.
and I would like to quickly get in on this. The thing with the mathematics, with the math books, I actually collect those now. I've noticed that when I have seen these new math books, they're basically trying to teach you math in ways that you try to make the problem more complicated, and that you try to use a solution that doesn't apply for all problems in math, which doesn't make any sense, right? And so basically, I've noticed this, especially when I've gone through various, math books over time, where I would be taught low-level math from old books, apparently, low-level math, and I would be using these same problem-solving structures to beat all the other higher-level math books. It was so effective, I could basically go through every single math book, even in the higher classes that I wasn't even in from an age perspective. I could solve all those problems with little to no difficulty. I'd had to learn new concepts, of course. There are challenges to calculate binary, so I didn't know how to do that yet. But of course, you have to upgrade. But you can use these same structures for almost everything. And I beat all of the books all the way until the year where you would technically be 15 or something like that. That's the educational material I had on hand. And I was always wondering to myself, why is this segregated into years? That is because when I actually looked at the problems and how they were supposed to be solved, they were solving them in the most inefficient way possible. And that somehow, with each and every single increasing year, they would somehow make the problem-solving structures a little bit different and more complicated than the previous year, even though they are the same math problems inherently. And so that was always the thing. And this is even more of a meme, really, because if you look at old TV shows and, their fathers, which hardly anyone does anymore, you don't see this in TV shows anymore, where their fathers be sitting down trying to help their sons, bonding and such, because, they have to go work. And so they'd be sitting down trying to solve these math problems. They look at it and think to themselves, my God, what on earth is this? It used to be funny to me, but now looking back on it with this hindsight, it's frightening. So, yeah. And I like the fact that you actually did the math on this with the population, using area as a means to demonstrate how much space there actually is available. And to that same point, I mean, you could power pretty much the entire planet with about the same size of area if you were to cover the whole thing in solar cells. The only issues you'd have would be transporting the energy, but that's why you should spread the solar cells throughout the world and not just have them in one patch. But that's a discussion for another time. Thank you.
So there could be a very effective way for the planet to be run that everyone's needs are met. And that's possible, wouldn't you say?
Yes, but you're not going to like the answer that I'm going to give you to this question.
That's okay.
The only way this can be done is through absolute and utter chaos. If you have basic laws and you enforce those laws, obviously, but if you allow society itself to be an anarchy and to be free, kind of, eventually you'll start to see the certain communities, pop up. For instance, if you were to look at communities with high levels of arrogance, these communities would rise in power and then eventually be destroyed because nobody wants to be a part of that, and they'd find there's more support from those communities which are apparently less powerful, and then those will become more powerful. See, power shifts occur all the time. It's the same reason why democracies turn into dictatorships and vice versa. Right? Have you ever noticed this, that any regime has a half-life and turns into the previous regime? So for instance, you have a democracy, right? Everyone's free, and then someone takes advantage of this power, and then basically they become a dictator. Then the dictator, everybody hates him eventually, and then someone will try to use the limited freedom that still exists and basically use this politeness, use this humbleness to get people on their side, and then the whole thing continues. Right? That's how democracy used to be. That's how Democrats, for instance, used to behave. That's how people on the left were once labeled. And now, I largely agreed with everything that people on the left would say. I thought it was always great to, be open-minded to everyone's opinions, and I still think that is the case. I'm not wavering in those beliefs. I think it is important to listen to everyone, but it is a freedom of speech and not a freedom of reach situation, right? It's not that we have to immediately act upon your opinions. It's like, yeah, you think this way? Oh, that's interesting. Here's how I think. Oh, we agree or no? So okay, that's right. We part ways. We go drink a beer, whatever. That's how it should be. Not like, I have this opinion and I will force you to live it. It's like, that's the world we are now. We are in a dictatorship. And so I think basically we are using slowed anarchy in order to define societies that basically define Earth and its civilizations. They're basically slowing down anarchy. And the only way that we can ever evolve out of this is if we just start to accept that we are very chaotic beings and that we somehow try to manage this by not trying to control it all the damn time.
Right?
But let it be very clear. Let it be very clear. I am not advocating for purge nights or anything like this, where you go out and you start killing your neighbors. Fuck no. just very clear. This is not what I mean with anarchy. What I mean is basically to have diverse amount of opinions and that none force each other's opinions upon one another in such a way that it causes massive harm. Like, sure, it will be a bit chaotic and you may not know where you stand, but eventually you'll find something to stand with, and that's a beautiful thing. Again, don't kill your neighbors, okay? I don't know a society where that happens. I don't want that. Not at all. Just no.
Yes, all the information shared in here is for entertainment purposes only, y'all. So I think that I just kind of got to lean into the spiritual side and just consider this as a hero's journey. I mean, what is joy without suffering? What is life without the duality of it all? And I know that we sit in these spaces, we talk about a lot of heavy things, but these are opportunities for humans to make moral decisions. These are opportunities for us to find the alchemy, find how to turn this into gold, just kind of metaphorically speaking. But I just want to infuse the conversation with that, because this is what it is to be human. And I think the tragedy and all of that comes with it, and it makes us actually really feel the good times and when we're actively conscious of them, right? So in times like that, we got to reach in and just remember gratitude and compassion, and I swear it'll get you through that moment. Okay, so Citizen, did you want to jump in and then you can pass the mic on?
Yeah, thanks. I kept getting kicked out. It was freezing. But what Adrian was just talking about, it's so funny because you could turn that into a 4 or 5 hour space easy, right? Like, I mean, there's so many, because does providing for everyone really need to lead to anarchy? And it's just, it's fascinating. It really is. But I just wanted to kind of touch on I forget who was talking about it, eugenics, real quick, and then I'm going to dive right back into what we were talking about in the space. But the father of eugenics is Sir Francis Galton, I believe is his name, and he was cousins with Charles Darwin, and it's been said that the father of eugenics got some of his, I guess you can say, motivation from his cousin Charles Darwin, right? And then you talk about some of the court hearings by the court rulings by the Supreme Court in the early 1900s, and the way that it was misused in the early 1900s of a decade or two later. Like, there's constant evolution of that belief, and then it got rebranded, and it's a crazy complex it's not that complex, but it's just funny, right? But so going back to what we've been talking about real quick, UN, education, one of the things that I do really focus on is messaging. And one of the things that I think people come up short with is the ability to provide solutions. If you look at the way that people try to combat what's happening with social emotional learning and transgender and all of the different things that we're talking about, the only options and solutions that really get thrown out by people on the right, I hate labels, but if we're just going to be simple about it, is vouchers and homeschooling, right? And those are not necessarily viable for most people in the country, right? In the United States. And so, like, we're so focused on the problems that we don't really dive in deep with the solutions as much as we should. And so, I'm hoping that some of the people who are talking about this in spaces can maybe try to focus on the messaging a little bit more, because we are falling short there. And it's interesting to be in some of these other spaces, especially around education. It falls into the same trap every single time. And I've even had one-on-one phone conversations about it, like, how do we change? And the person will agree with me, and then I'll hear certain things in spaces, and it always goes back to it. I'm telling you, it always goes back to that culture war. So just throwing that out there. I went all over the place, 3 different subjects. Love you guys. I'm out.
That's okay. We just have ADD. I'm just gonna accept it. It's all
Squirrel
good.
squirrel in a windstorm. That's why I said earlier. I felt like I was a squirrel in a windstorm.
That's the funniest thing. I had a whole visual of that. That's so cute. Okay, I think Prometheus had his hand up, and then we got a new speaker. Oh, we also got Kat. So Prometheus, Kat, and then Jacqueline, and then
Thanks,
Carrie.
May.
Yep.
And yeah, I just want to build on what some of the speakers have said and affirm the fact that, you know what, we're meant to be here. Like what you were saying, Maze, earlier about the duality of life, the fact that they're doing this has led to us congregating together here and having this exact discussion. And as Margaret Mead said, never underestimate the power of what a small group of people can do, and we are that small group of people. All right, like they have messed with the wrong cats as far as I'm concerned. So the way this is going to play out, as if we play our cards right here, let's consider what we have to our advantage, what resources we have. We have Twitter, right, which is massive. Like the fact that brother Elon got us to, when he said on Tucker that some things are priceless, right, including the truth, considering the buying price of Twitter and everything. I completely, agreed with him, and I think it's actually going to pay off long term. I think he is going to make this into a $1 trillion company, like he's done with every other company he's done so far. So, I have no doubts about that. And one of the ways that we can do that is, and I know that he's already planning this to an extent, is by converting it somewhat like PayPal and Binance and some of these other things, like have, monetary transactions on this platform, which I'm sure, he's already thought about and he's got his geniuses working on. And if we can combine that with a true educational imperative, and I mean a real true educational imperative, right? Like based on the best insights we have about pedagogy, right? Like Adrian, I consider is a born natural teacher, like, and so are you, Maze, and many of the speakers here. You guys are excellent teachers. I love how beautifully you break down concepts so that, even simple things that, it might be relatively simple for you, but for a lot of people, it's not so simple. And you have that gift of communication. And I think communication is the most powerful tool that we have because, as the saying goes, truth is like a lion. You set that thing free, it defends itself, right? And so let's just look at some of the recent examples of that. So I've been a part of the the COVID mandate, anti-COVID mandate things from the very beginning, right? So when lockdowns first came on in 2020, I was the first people to, see that second David Icke interview with Brian Rose, and I was just like, right, I've seen this shit before, right? They do the whole we're going to announce what we're doing before and then actually do it kind of thing, right? Like they did with 9/11. They did it with, what was it? What was that forum? Maze, help me out. The thing that they had in 2019. It was
Event 201.
Event, that's right. Thank you, G. Yeah, it's Event 201. So, this is similar as well with the education. We're telling you we're going to sexualize the kids before we do it. Like, bitch slap, no. But like, it's it's that shows you your power. All right. The fact that they have to tell you before they do it, right? It's the whole passive consent thing. And I only realized this in the last few years. And I'm going to give you guys a powerful example of how to counter this. And we can do this right here. We can do this on spaces like this, okay? The only tech we truly need is the tech of our own consciousnesses. Maze, what you were saying earlier, I was just like, like it was so true about manifestation and what we focus on, right? Let's not focus on the negative. Let's affirm that we're going to create the best damn education system in the world. Let's affirm that we're going to create, the most prosperous companies and economies. We're going to take all those people living on less than $2 a day. We're going to use these technologies of digital assets and back them up with precious metals and whatever. That's what my company is doing. And we're going to bring them in and build new societies that actually house, clothe, feed the entire world. This is totally possible, people, right? We don't need to overthink this, right? Just systematically work together here. And then when we come on spaces like this, just literally visualize and meditate. And I'll just end with this one final point, which is that on my profile pic, you see me meditating, and that was me guiding a meditation in front of the police lines during the COVID lockdowns. And at that time, it looked like these lockdowns and these rules were here to stay, right? They had all the power, they had all the money, and yet now in the UK, they're gone. Boris Johnson's government has resigned. All right, how did that happen? From just 1,000 people in Hyde Park to 1 million people marching in London the year next. And I know we've also got some help. All right, I'm not going to mention the 17th letter out of respect for y'all, but there is more going on than meets the eye. Military tribunals are happening, people. But there's that aside, the fact that enough people are shifting their consciousnesses, this affects the totality of reality. Right? We're never separate from whatever you want to call the totality of reality, universe, God, the quantum field, whatever, right? It itself is conscious. The I am presence is not generated by the brain. We know this, okay? Like there's profound neuroscience on this. The fact that we have a free Twitter now and that we can actually speak our mind, all right? It means that those biased convolutional neural networks of the media that are continuously filtering out what they don't want to hear, and it's gone. And instead we have this. We have the truth, raw, bouncing from mind to mind, coming up with creative solutions. And this is the thing authority doesn't have. They're not creative. We know their playbook. It's so predictable. We're going to tell you, and then we're going to condition you, and then we're going to like it's just so predictable, right? So if we just bring our 3-digit IQs to this 2-digit IQ crowd, I'm pretty sure we can win this. And I'll land my rocket ship there. Thank you.
Thank you, Prometheus. I'm trying to remember who was next. I'm sorry. I think it was Kat, right? And if I'm wrong, guys, always feel free to correct me. Okay, go ahead, love.
Thank you. And I just love what he said. I like the idea of a shift in consciousness. And I too believe that perhaps the solution is spaces. I think it's exposure and organization. We have to get the idea of solution out there. I think that recently with like the Bud Light thing and Tucker being kicked off the air, a lot more regular busy people, as someone mentioned, have been like, what is going on? And you can start small, but you need to actually get people active in finding their groups and starting small. The organization from the left has been going on for years. That's how they've taken over all the institutions. So if we zoom out,
hold on one second.
We can
wait. I'm sorry. Did you hear that? Was that from your microphone? Never mind. Whoever it was is gone now. Okay, go ahead, hon.
if you zoom out, with little video segments, maybe even promoting spaces, people are going to be able to learn about it, because I don't think enough of the world realizes that what's going on here is average people, just everyday people at any time of day can get on and find a group and listen and get educated. And the way Adrian was talking about filing everything so that people can pull up the facts. Like, I love what he said too about approaching this from a non-judgmental, non-moral, scientific approach, just connecting some dots for people and showing them the receipts, letting them do a little bit of research, but putting, it in their face. And then a solution is, you can join a space. You can figure out how to organize in your community. You can figure out what you personally can do. You can express yourself, because so many people just get on here and rehash the same issues without actually doing anything. And we need to be proactive. We need to organize. And we now have a platform in which we can do that. But in order to get the general people, we need to have something that promotes it across various platforms, that reaches people, so they can tune in. And it's all connected. Education, health, all of it is connected. What Adrian was saying about the math books, what people were saying about how these changes, started in the 60s and the 70s and then ramped up in the 80s, showing the little segments of how the puzzle comes together, how we've all been just floating along in this culture climate, and we don't have to be subject to it. That's all I wanted to say. I just think that there is a way, and if we all come together, we can proactively shift consciousness and allow people to feel like they're doing something. And I think that's important in the world right now.
Thanks, Kat. I think honestly, like there's, I feel like there's like this intrinsic kind of motivation that everyone has it, but it might be just, on a different aspect of, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's very hard to be concerned and do something about everything, right? And so whatever like areas around all
finding your own little group, finding what interests people, because some people are really into health, some people are really into the education, some people are really into their local politics.
Right. Yeah. So it's just whatever, I feel like whatever I'm interested in is kind of in divine alignment, right? That's I strongly am, I disagree with forcing myself to pay attention or to work through something, because I mean, there's times where, yeah, we have to do that, right? But I think that there's like, I just feel like we're so much more powerful and effective, and whenever we're focusing on those areas. So I know that this entire global affairs things, obviously it's a huge umbrella that has a lot of stuff that's going on to it, but one of the things I think is really kind of connecting all of them is around these foundations. So if we can just kind of really focus, or if anybody knows any international law experts that can kind of help us navigate that, I think that would be a great discussion that we can kind of pull in, because if we're able to kind of plug the funding to a lot of these things, I think that gives us I mean, I really do think that that's kind of the shortcut to all of our, because it trickles down into everything, right? And so I think that can be one area of focus. And yeah, I agree with what you were saying, Kat. And ultimately, guys, whenever we are expanding, our awareness into, I would say, because a lot of times we use the word like expanding consciousness. Consciousness is expanded. It is us that's kind of moving into. So when we move into self-realization and we become aware, of our divinity and whatever, like, I don't know what people believe in. People believe in different things. And I really am, I'm not shooting like blanks. Okay. What I mean by that is, like, I really do believe we're going to, shift like grab the wheel. We're gonna definitely, I'm not saying this just to kind of have a Twitter space. I really do think we can leverage this and all of our connections, the 6 degrees of separation, and make something happen. So all right,
giving people hope.
Yes, absolutely. We're gonna get through these three hands, and then I want to entertain AI just for a little bit. I want to catch Adrian up on what my space was about earlier, and kind of get his take on that, and then we'll move to close so that Nikki and I can get some sleep because we've been going for a long time. But go ahead. I think Jackie, and then Caroline, and then Jay Patriot.
Okay, well, as far as the education is concerned, I think I am probably out of all of this stuff the most concerned about the children and the sexualization of the children. There was an old saying my grandmother used to always tell me, and she was real spiritual. And it was that once they lose their light, it's all gone. And she was always referring to children in that sense. And that's because, whatever you learn as a child, even when you try to grow away from it, it's always there. It will always be there. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So you want to, and Christianity gives you a good foundation of that, although I'm not the best Christian, I have to say it does have a very good foundation. A lot of religions do on how to treat children. And I think that the one thing that concerns me the most right now is that it's in our schools, and our families don't have time for our children. Even when I was raising children, I had an option of working nights and spending more time with my children. Whereas now these people are working such long days. They have no time. The people who really have the most time are the schools with our children. So we really need to hone in on that and focus. But, you can have all kinds of awareness. If you don't have focus, you have nothing. I mean, that's just, it's a sad truth. And I think that psychologically, the powers that be, which God, I can't even tell who it is anymore, but they know that. I mean, and we're bombarded with so many different areas of confusion. And I think that's why, for me, I go to nature. I have to get away and recollect and come back, because I'll melt down if I try to go too many different directions. But I believe we have a chance to overcome things. I think that one of the good things about the connectivity is that we can throw things around and learn from it and glean from it. But we will always have those overachievers who has to dominate and reinvent the wheel. And there's just some things about nature that is just defined as what it is. You know what I'm saying? Just simple things, but it is what it is no matter what you do. And I'm not even talking about, the transgender or any of that. I'm just saying in general. And but they overthink. And I think that sometimes the simpler people like me think, just because they overthink that they know more. Sometimes overthinking makes them just as stupid as someone who's not educated. So I think that it's a good idea to always, when you're taking in all this information, stay focused on your passion. And then every once in a while, if it gets too much, get outside and plant something, do something, play with an animal, do something. And I promise it will make it better, but get a hummingbird feeder, them things are fun to watch. But yeah, focus on the children too. I think that's the big heavy hitter here, because these confused people are making up all kinds of rules that really don't belong and will damage long-term, the culture, no matter how they design the future. Whether they, you'll survive socialism, you'll survive, whatever they throw at you. People do, you adapt. But you can't fix what they're going to do to these children long-term. So I think that would be a good idea to really hone in and focus on that. and I'll
Yes,
drop
girl,
you.
you just articulated what I was trying to say earlier, but I had to use like 6,000 words when you could use like 500. So thank you for articulating that.
I'm
But
sorry, I
no, it
overtalked.
was great. No, 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 I'm complimenting you because I was trying to describe why I felt like, this is it. If there's anything to, what do they call die on a hill? I don't even know where that stupid um that saying comes from, but yeah, I think that this would be the hill, right? It's irreparable damage. What would happen to the future of society, our kids and grandkids running around in these streets with all types of craziness? And it just seems like they're literally, I think somebody had provided a link that kind of, or they played an audio about kind of completely distorting idea of normal. Do you guys remember that? It was recently somebody brought that up, but anyway, I really appreciated what you said because I do think that we can perhaps survive a lot of other things, and it continues to shift in terms of economy and government. But when it comes to the children and them, they're a moldable clay, and I can't. There's something about that is we definitely. Oh, thank you. So this is the hill I die on. Yeah, that's exactly. She's always correcting me. I love it. Okay, go ahead, Caroline. Jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Maze. Thanks for the mic again. Yeah, Jacqueline, she's good people, and she's very in tune, so to speak. And but I do agree with you about not forcing. There's a couple things I want to touch on. I do agree with you about not forcing yourself to do something that maybe is not your natural gift. It doesn't mean that we don't have to do the things we don't like to do. It's just we're better. We're better when we're doing what we were intended to do. Like everybody's got a purpose and a unique purpose, a divine purpose that was put into them. And I think that if we find that and we're most effective when we get in sync with that. I'd like to be a really great guitar player, but I'm not. And so I spend too much time trying to be one, and then I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing and being effective. So I agree with you with that. And I like that you said that. I do. I like that you said that a lot because it needs to be said more often, probably. There's a lot of people trying to force their own will and be something that they're not, including myself in the past. I've tried to twist myself in a pretzel to make people happy, all this other crapola. It doesn't effing work. Okay. So I could just tell you that doesn't work. And I wanted to speak on, somebody mentioned solutions, and I'm a solution-based person. A lot of people say that. I am it. I have no other choice. I have to be a solution-based person or I'm going to crash and burn. And and I'm actually quite good at it. I'm not really good at teaching it, but I'm good at being it. When I'm forced with a problem or an issue or a situation, one of the tools that I learned that is invaluable is it's my reaction. My reaction to what is going on is paramount to how hard it's going to be for me to solve the problem or deal with the problem or leave the problem behind and have the humility to know that I can't solve that problem, move on, kick that away and go to something else that I'll be more effective. And growing up surfing, involved in nature, and I own livestock and all that has taught me so much. It's taught me not to shoot from the hip. It's taught me that, I'm I'm responsible for my reaction. Okay. So like when I have a horse in distress or an animal in distress, it's the way that I behave. I have to go many times directly against my feelings in order to get the animal out of distress and keep things calm. Because at this point, they're looking at me. They're looking at me and they're like, oh, holy cow, if she's scared or she's acting like a nut, I'm really in trouble. And when you have like a 1,500-pound animal in distress, and then you put fear on top of it, lots of dangerous things can happen. And I've seen lots of dangerous things happen, and including the loss of life and human life. So as a result of that, I think it's a good tool that I just wanted to share out, that I use on a regular basis. It's been so helpful to me. Is maybe I continually work on my reaction. These are things that I can control. These are things within myself that I control. Self-control is so important, and it's something that took me a very long time to really get into And, but I'm a work in progress. We hear that all the time from other people. We're a work in progress. Forgive yourself for the mistakes you made. Be honest about everything you can. And you just keep going. I like your vibe, Maze. I'm going to continue to come into your spaces. I hadn't been because they're so big, that I get lost in them a little bit. I've sat in a few of them. I don't think I've ever asked to speak. I am grateful that you gave me a mic and that we got to hook up this morning. And I will just go to listen. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, love. I hope you do come up and speak more often. And yeah, it was nice to chat with you. I'm just now seeing that Citizen, I think, did he drop off because there's a button right by his name? I'm not sure, but
I see him. I don't know if you do, but I see him.
I see him, but do you see the little button by the co-host? Well,
Yes.
I guess if yeah, let me see if he emailed me, whatever. I thought his hand was up, but I guess he's not there at the moment. He might come back. Oh, there's Jay Patriot. He had his hand up. That's who it was. Go ahead, Jay Patriot, jump in. And Citizen, are you having issues with your mic? Just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Thumbs up if you are. Or you can hit me in the back channel. Anyway, jump in, Jay Patriot.
Hey, I think Adrian was touching on this, and I do agree that if we overthrow one set of tyrants, then just another set of tyrants will become powerful. And it's just changing one set of rules for the next set of rules, and one set of people who are on the bottom now are on the top, and then the top's now on the bottom. And I don't think that's really a way society should grow. I mean, we're at a point, an inflection point, a pivotal point in society with communications the way that they have. We always elect the 1% to represent the 99%. We all understand that the 1% sometimes grow up with a silver spoon in their mouth and don't really understand what it's like to have to decide which bill to pay. They've never had problems with credit. They've never had the problems that we as a society experience on a daily basis. And I don't think that's an equal representation in government. And I don't think that we should overthrow one side so the other side becomes the ruling class. It's just, it's a balance and it's a pendulum, right? And pendulums swing both ways. For us to really truly fix the pendulum, what we should do as a society is get rid of the two-party system and have people in government that have equal opportunity run from government, from the poorest to the richest. Whether it's controlling how much funding could be spent on a campaign, whether it's controlling, maybe the campaigns are ran by the government, maybe there's shorter election cycles, maybe it's only allowed to be 45 days. And we should get rid of, in my humble opinion, the two-party system. And people should be able to run on their own values and morals, because if you're claiming you're a conservative, you may have some liberal views, but if you express those liberal views, you'll never get to be running on the conservative side. And that really is a compromise of values and morals, because when we elect representation in the government, it needs to represent the people fairly and equally. And it shouldn't have to be well, you're blood or a crypt. What gang do you want to claim, and what values that you have to claim with that gang? It should be people we resonate with, because the unique thing about the United States of America and not other countries is that we're so diverse from coast to coast, from farming lands to this to that we can't possibly all be ruled the same. And our founding fathers knew that through the colonies, because the colonies were supposed to have the power, well-regulated armies, and the federal government was designed to just settle disputes of sorts. But I think we need to get rid of the party system completely, and people should run on their own values and morals. And when we could do that and start representing 100% of our population, just not the 1%, I think that's when this country really would start to progress.
I definitely agree. I mean, we have to put all these weird differences aside, not hyperfixate on them. Like, what's the point? I mean, come on, seriously. The last thing. This is an interesting thing. When I was a kid, I would, and even until recent years, all the way up until at least 2020, that's before this became a real big issue, I would watch a movie and I would not care what race the actor was. It was literally not a thing I would notice. It was just, I would see it for the way it is, and it was very nice. I wouldn't care. I didn't even know that this was an issue. I just talked to everyone equally, and I respected everyone equally if they respected me. That's how it worked. And then later, until at least 2020, I started to see the differences more, and it was kind of weird. And that was only because these differences were hyper-fixated on. But you don't need to do this, because it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what color your skin or what creed you're from. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're human and that you're a good human, right? Like if you have actual humanity, then you could just gel with pretty much everyone. Unless, of course, you're a Satanist, then that's a different issue entirely. But yeah, that's just that. Oh, by the way, for those of you who are going to be attending the space next week, I'll be not next week, sorry, this week. That I'll be hosting on Thursday. I've posted a very large tweet on this, which we'll be using as a template for spaces going forward. And I would highly encourage everyone to look through that, like it and retweet it, so it actually gains a bit of traction, so people know what's going on. And then basically this tweet will define the rules for the spaces to come, as well as the space that is going to be hosted soon in a few days. Hope to see you guys there. Thank you.
Could I just ask Adrian a question really quick? Adrian, would you be open to exploring just like there's a voting capacity, you can throw up a voting thing on your Twitter feed, right? Would you be open to potentially a voting system more broadly where people could take real-time bills that are being passed, whether they're in the UK or wherever else, and actually say, right, I'm against this, and maybe even, I don't know, have a badge? I don't know, what do you think about that?
Okay, if I understand this correctly, are you saying that we should internationalize voting?
Damn straight, King.
It's an interesting concept, but at the end of the day, I think there might be some flaws in this. Okay, let's take this example. Let's take two separate states, and let's say one is a Democrat state and one is a red state, right? Now, let's say all the legislation in the blue state fails, right? Which is like California today. And then everybody wants to go to the red states. The problem is, a lot of people in the red states are now complaining that they have blue state voters in their state, which is basically going to jeopardize their election and thereby also weaken the red state in general. Now, the complaint basically goes, if you want to live here, you have to vote a certain way, because the way that we voted ensured the environment that you are now living in, right? You have to preserve that, and if you vote differently, that's kind of a problem, and you can keep your problems to yourself and in the state that you voted for, right? Just like that. And I think the same thing would also apply for international voting, right? Let's say another country has a different opinion on how to run things. I don't think we should necessarily be forcing those opinions onto one another then. I mean, internationalizing a vote is not necessarily a good thing. I think there should be criticism on certain bills passed, for sure. But then again, I mean, things should just progress as they are, and each country should do their own thing. And I mean, there are quite a few crazy things out there that no one talks about. But other than that, I don't think that internationalizing voting will improve anything. I think it might even make things worse. Still an interesting idea, though.
What if, okay, so what if we take that in a different direction and consider, like, okay, so for example, if you were to have almost like a poll type of situation, so not necessarily like an organized vote, like this is going to bring legislation into these countries, but to basically get a feel for those areas and how they would feel in a public forum versus in their country. And maybe, because we know there's fraud going on all throughout this planet. And so it'd be interesting to see what would come if you would say, like different parts of the area would be able to see what other, like how do I explain this?
A consensus.
Yeah, kind of, right? So you
actually,
could have
no. I think I know what you're trying to get at. Basically, applying a approval rating of sorts to a piece of legislation. Is that it?
Kind of, yeah. So
that's it. That's it.
So, like, let's say, for example, like the Restrict Act, right? I mean, we all know it goes to Congress, and whatever happened, like we were all freaked out about it. So, if there was a way to say, like, what do we think as a people that we all have our little individual Twitter accounts, and maybe say only verified Twitter accounts could vote, to kind of like help in a way, you would have more of like, wow, there's a lot of people in this country that are really against this, So that small amount that are in Congress just fucking everybody over has somebody, it's like an extra septic kind of answer to. Does that make sense?
Take a temperature.
Now, if that happened, I might pay for a check mark if it actually mattered for something.
Well, I mean, actually it does. I mean, if you have a check mark, you can not only write long form tweets, you get to bookmark your tweet, and also on top of that, you get better reach.
I'm just saying.
I only have 285 characters, and that's why I love Chat GPT, because anything I want to say, I'm like, can you make this in 285 characters, please? And it does. But how do you get I have a check mark. I don't have the long tweets.
But yeah, you do. You basically just like type it in there, and that's it. Like if you have the check mark and you have Twitter Blue, you can just basically type in your whole thing. The only thing where it doesn't work is when you do a thread. Then it won't work.
Oh, so wait a minute. Okay.
You just keep
You
on
can try it right
typing.
now.
You just keep on typing me. So like normally it'll say like you're running out, like you watch a little circle, but like after the circle disappears, like you'll start to see another thing that fills in. So it'll
I thought that meant I went over. Okay.
If it turns red, then yeah, but like if it's not turning red, you're fine.
Oh my God. Do you know? Oh, wow.
You can do it, Maze.
I've been literally giving myself a headache with like the 285 characters. I could have said things so much better and so many better words. But okay.
Let me ask you one question. How long have you had Twitter Blue?
So I became, I think in January is when I really started coming on here. I think February or something like that. I don't know. It's not too long.
And now just imagine the amount of tweets that you could have tweeted.
I know, and the length of them. I mean, because I love words. I think language is its own art, and I've had to turn my art into choppy art. Like, I'm just like, oh, I don't need this word. Oh, put in an and symbol.
Are you a real
you know how much
blonde?
time that takes? What did you just say? Somebody said something.
Are you a real blonde?
First of all, does my hair right there look blonde? Hold on.
I'm sorry. I was just kidding. I was just kidding.
What?
No, my hair is not blonde. My hair is actually really dark, but I highlight it, and then now it's just.
It's just Chris being a goofball. That's okay.
I know.
We have to
Anyway,
humor. We love Chris because he's awesome, and we've got.
It wasn't Chris. It was Johnny that called me a blonde, I think. So we have one more hand. I pay attention, but let's.
Wait, Adrian's about to say. I think Adrian's talking. Hang on.
Go ahead, Adrian.
Oh no, I'm just listening currently.
Okay, sorry.
Well, okay, we're gonna go to Big and Prometheus. After that, though, before I come back to you, I wanted to hit on some of the AI stuff, but I wanted to wrap up this discussion on the UN and kind of our mission as humanity, and then we're gonna jump back into the fun AI stuff. Okay, go ahead, Big.
Bonjour. How you guys doing?
Bonjour.
I'm French. So I live in
Bonjour.
Paris. So bonjour tout le monde. My question is that, does anyone of you, since you're all Americans here, or I assume that you're all Americans here, my question is that, do you still believe in the UN? Because Switzerland, the second office of the UN is in Switzerland, the neutral country, the most powerful country in terms of passport and economy and education too. And how come, because for us in Europe, we do not agree so much of the UN because of the politics that's going on. Like, they are so selective in terms of making investigation from people all over the world in terms of relations and connections. For example, like, there are selective understanding of party, like, like, for example, the government of Venezuela and all that. And some countries agree, some countries don't, because of, like because of they have connections, like for example, Iran and Russia and China go with Venezuela, while America and the rest of the world doesn't want to. I mean, do you still believe in the UN, knowing it's still a biased organization, very selective investigation, you know?
Okay, so it depends on what you mean by believe in, because they are an organization that has many, many sub-organizations and affiliations. And on top of that, they're very, very active and have a lot to do with what we're seeing coming down. I mean, everything from the sustainable development is impacting every aspect of our lives. Like it's going to be coming the ESG and how that's going to literally impact people up and down the supply chain. I mean, what they are offering in terms of, I guess, everything that they talk about, like the climate change and inclusivity, diversity, and equity, all of that, the woke. I mean, it's all coming from those global organizations, mainly the UN, right? So I feel like, do I believe in what they are advocating? No. Do I believe in climate change? Like, I believe that we can do way better. I absolutely know that we're hurting the environment. And I know that it's a lot of, after the Industrial Revolution, there's a lot. But what I also think is that they are exploiting that and making it a huge, in order to kind of usher in a lot of these global, the governance and just the infrastructure to be able to get the control that they want. So I guess all of that to say, I don't advocate or believe in what they're representing at all. I think that they should be dismantled, and but yes, they are real. If that's my answer. What do you? I mean, anybody else want to jump in on that?
I mean, but that's the question,
Yeah.
though. I mean, if we look at like this global warming thing, we know that these are all about carbon credits. So we know that Al Gore created carbon credits and put it on the commodities exchange in 1984. And we know that we've seen the ice core samples that approve of global warming is false. Then it's all of these things that are controlling us, right? They look over here, global warming. I mean, in the 80s, and I'm an 80s kid, they talked about how Aquanet hairspray caused a hole in the ozone layer. But that conversation is gone because that hole in the ozone layer has regenerated. We see that the Arctic ice shelves, if that really exists, is actually regenerating themselves, and it's creating more and more ice than that's leaving. So I think this whole globalism is about controlling the dollars and embezzling money and creating Ponzi schemes like NASA and all of these things. And I think the World Economic Forum, the UN, all of this is just another reason to steal taxpayer dollars and give them to other countries while they're doing the same things, the Five Eyes.
I mean, my personal assessment of what they're doing is they're doing it extremely inefficiently. If they wanted to solve the problem of renewable energy, they could do it in less than 3 years. I'm not even joking. That's a bad estimate too. You can do this in less than 3 years. You can have all the infrastructure there constructed in less than 2. You can lay out everything else in less than a year, maybe. Add on to that, maybe bureaucracy will take an extra year, but 3 years tops. In any country, anywhere, always, you can do this. If you use solar, for instance, you can do this. It's actually possible, but they don't. And I personally feel like a lot of the times the solutions that are being proposed are ones made intentionally bad to such a degree where green energy actually becomes an embarrassment, and that we basically revert to using other things such as nuclear power instead, which I'm actually not against. I'm not against nuclear power. I think it's a very energy dense thing itself, but it generates a
Why does
lot
it
of
take
very
so long,
harmful waste.
Adrian? Why is it
Come
taking
again?
them so long? So, like, they had the breakthrough with the nuclear. I'm glad that you brought it up, but it seems to be taking them way too long. Like, in other words, they said something about 30 years it wouldn't be available. I'm like, what? I don't know. What's your take on that?
I mean, you go ask them and we'll both know, but I don't know. I mean, I've seen how bureaucracy works, and let me tell you, it is intentionally built to be inefficient. It's basically like a hardbook copy of this 1940s handbook on sabotage released by the CIA. I've written it. It's very. I read it. It's very nice. That's like most of the things. Like, oh, create a forum. Make sure the forum has a lot of people in it. Then create a subcommittee of that forum. Make sure that also has a lot of people. It's like, you know, this is what I've been going through the entire time. And let me tell you, even though I am very good at handling bureaucracy, and it's something that I kind of enjoy doing sometimes, it is annoying and I hate it for its inefficiency. Like, especially when there have been many instances where I had to handle certain situations, and you just think to yourself, wow, how is it so damn difficult? Like this one time, I got married, right? And so I had to prove that I was in fact, not married in a previous country, so I did this in a foreign country, right? Because of circumstance. And anyways, I was there, and they said, oh, I have to prove this with a single status. And I'm like, why do I have to prove the single status? Or to prove that you are not married. And I was like, okay, fine, I could do this. I may not be able to get the single status directly from the embassy because, they were, the person just simply wasn't there. And so basically I said, okay, you know what? Here's how we can do this. I can basically take the law in the country that I resided in and apply that, right? So basically the foreign country, the country from which I came, in which I'm actually a citizen in, that country has a law that you can't get married at a specific age. And I had been inside of that country for a very long time, and I had left that country last when I was not within the legal age of being married, right? And so I came here and I used my passport and the travel history to prove this, right? And this person, there's this scene from Zootopia. It was like this, but worse, and in a condescending, mildly pathetic kind of way. Okay, I was sitting there, and then she just came out with this and said, "Oh, this passport is different from the original one." Yes, because the other one is invalid now. That's because I've been here for so damn long, and we had to actually get the passport renewed. But that's a different number. Yes, because it's the same passport, but it's a different passport because the passport is renewed. I even brought the old passport. And then basically I said, okay, what you need to focus on is the travel records. I could not have traveled anywhere, and the travel records are from the Ministry for Immigration. It's that you cannot fake that, right? And she didn't accept it. She went to the supervisor like 3 different times in a row, and each time she came back with an even dumber excuse as to why that couldn't work. Eventually, basically boiling down to her asking me, "Damn, is it so hard? Is it so difficult to get a single status?" And I'm like, "Is it so difficult for you to observe the law?" Like, okay. It was really, I got really pissed off. The second day I came there, everything went really through because I created a massive shitstorm for them, that's for sure. I like bothered them the whole week through. It was great. And I finally got the whole situation done. Boy, do I hate bureaucracy. I hate it. It's like so unnecessarily complicated and sticking to things to make it like inefficient somehow. It's unfortunate. I like bureaucracy if it makes things better, but
There's
not like
just some
this.
haters in the world, Adrian. That just sounded like a hater. I deal with those all the time, even at the airport. Like, I
Yeah,
swear.
yeah.
I mean, knowing you're about to make me miss my flight, God damn it. Like, I mean, there's just all the nitpicky shit. Yeah, I totally feel you. But that's
I
that.
used
That's
to work for an airline. We'll have stories
Wow.
these days.
okay, but so guys, real quick, I gotta tap in on this AI thing real quick. I had a space earlier. What kind of inspired this space is I was looking into all these different videos, and I had these clips about these AI bots that were like talking to each other, and what a fascinating journey that was to listen to them. And I can rock out on some if you guys want to hear 'em. Anyway, what I also found out about, and I don't, let me just preface this to say I have not proven, or I haven't had time to really even check this to see if it's true or not. But actually, let me go read this one sentence to you guys so I say it correctly. But it was really concerning, where someone had mentioned about these audio bots joining Twitter Spaces and basically being able to polarize or diffuse polarized arguments from human beings based on scientific evidence and psychotherapy. I don't really know what all that means. I'm going to do some due diligence, but I thought, I mean, it's definitely something that we can kick around a little bit in addition to some of the clips. And so it made way for a great discussion, but I'm curious to know what you think about that. I feel like if that were to be happening, that would be what replaces mainstream media, because people don't trust mainstream anymore at all. They come to Twitter usually and kind of discuss it in these spaces. So imagine somebody just rolling up in here with like 300,000 followers, and then some other bot homies that are kind of talking to each other, so it makes it look like he's real. And then very well spoken, very articulate, and I think that it could really shape people's opinions and perspectives. I just thought it was really interesting and a little bit on the danger side. But I want to get your thoughts, Adrian.
You can definitely do this. It would probably be a lot of effort. It would probably be a lot of unnecessary effort. I personally would, try to get those numbers through growth and actual meaningful influence. But you could do it. You could definitely do this. If a person came in here and all of a sudden you had like 1,000 people connected, they'd be like, damn, who is this heavyweight? Everybody go follow them, right? But the real person, you'll say, hey, can you tell some of your followers to follow me? And then you'll have an increase of engagement. That's the real person over the fake one. The fake one can't do that because the fake one basically has these bots stringed to one account. Right, so yeah, this can be done, and I think especially with such things as ChatGPT, we can make them sound natural by basically giving them different conditions. But yeah, this is entirely doable. I'm not sure if anyone has done this already, but I've seen a lot of strange accounts out here. But oh well, to do this would require, I think, a research team, a year or two of development. Actually, make that 5 years, because Jesus Christ, the amount of writing of code that you'll have to do. And I don't think you can rely on ChatGPT to help you string it together. You'll actually have to do the writing yourself, because this is like unprecedented. So yeah, it's doable, but very hard.
Well, I don't think it'd be one person, right? I think like just the way, just same way that they organized all of the Twitter file stuff that was dropped, they had literally organizations whose entire objective was to throw off or to shape perspectives around the elections. Remember? And so I mean, the amount of money into that would, just just think about the hours and money that went into that effort. So I just think that would be kind of a option. Well, so by the way, I got this from somebody who said that that's what they observed. Now, I know the person from Twitter Spaces, not outside of that, but and it seems to be somebody reliable. But I don't have proof of this yet. But he's saying that it already exists, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think personally, a lot of the time, there's this issue when it comes to social media and influence, right? You can easily fake it, and you cannot necessarily deplatform an individual for looking like a bot. Like, for instance, say something like this, right? That follower engagement would only count if those followers are verified accounts, right? That would solve a lot of problems, but it would also alienate a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily want to pay, so it's unfair. Right, so I think things like this will always exist, and I think we should be very careful when a huge army of unverifieds is coming along and basically trying to shape your opinions. Like, I think we have to start asking some questions. That's that. I mean, not that I'm saying that everybody who is unverified is a bot. I'm just saying that you can easily make bots out of this, because I mean, if you take 1,000 different accounts and they're all verified, that's $8,000 a month. That's different, If somebody were to do that, you could probably do it if you were, say, probably some sort of intelligence agency with taxpayers' money, and just theoretically speaking, just random thoughts.
That's what I'm saying. But okay, I think, but also, and we can get to the hands and right now, but I think that is just a small glimpse. We're going to continue to come across examples that are like, oh, snap, I never thought about that. But Elon, and uh, many of the people that I've listened to around AI, all talk about misinformation, and just we know that the flow of information, however, whatever reaches us, like that is kind of what we end up talking about. Like, and it's if there, like, I think that we need to kind of start imagining and questioning things. Like, if it seems like a little bit weird or just off. I don't know. I think, but that right there completely blew my mind. Like, damn, that would be crazy, because people in Twitter spaces are more inclined to believe you because you're not mainstream news. You're not, I don't know. It's fascinating, but we will continue to explore all the avenues of. And I hope the guy Sasha will definitely I'll see him in another space, I'm sure, and we can talk to him about it. But we'll continue to explore all the potentials and the avenues of, what we may see in with AI, just in social media, and just continue to check for examples. And you guys got to let me know if you see some weird, funky stuff in other spaces and the profile so I can be on the lookout for it. But I've had people that come in my space and they will sit there and start sending me. My account got clipped. Like I wasn't even here 30 days. And it was because somebody kept adding bots and then taking them away or something. That was the excuse from Twitter anyway. But I did notice the numbers would like jump up 100 and then go down 50. I'm like, what is going on? And it would be when certain people came in the space, except they didn't talk. They would just, I mean, I don't know. They would DM me saying, "Do you want followers?" I'm like, "No, fool, I don't want followers." I was like, "Why
Wow.
did you send me followers?" Because I mean, I figured that's where it came from when the 100 jumped. Anyway, um, so yeah, it's crazy. But let's see, Citizen, you go first. Oh, did you want to jump in, Nikki, and then pass it off to Citizen, and we'll get to hands.
I just wanted to. Wasn't there something going around about people that were being paid just to like sit in spaces?
What do you
That's a thing. Oh, come on, no.
Yeah,
What do you mean?
remember?
Like, I could get paid for sitting in a space, or you mean like people were paid?
Like, so okay. I had when I first was on here, I ended up in a space that was kind of like I shouldn't have been in. And I got like pummeled, and that's why Carolina and I became friends. And so the more that went on, it was like, well, this person's basically paid to like be a troll, like because he would go into spaces and basically just try to disrupt and throw things off, and it was like his job. So let's say, for example, if we were having this conversation and somebody came in and then they were having a conversation and then another person followed them and they try to engage each other, you have to stop it immediately because they it's like it's a technique that they use to derail, right? Or if somebody comes in and then they try to make everything about them, like it's derailing. Like I can't imagine people just do that for free. So I've heard that it's been used to disrupt if people are getting into topics that are meaningful. So, I've got a lot of people blocked, and I always say if you're on my blocked list, and you find that out, send whoever a message. Maze has had to do it before, and I'll unblock the person if I know they're not an issue. But if I'm sitting, in a space and I notice something, like I block them. But I noticed when I started doing that, the people that were in the spaces, they were like more they were easier to manage because there wasn't like the disruptions, like people coming in, opening sounds, making noises, causing like obvious disruptions that were like intentional. It wasn't just, back and forth in healthy discourse. It was, you know what I mean. So I'm just curious about the paid trolls. There have to be. I mean, I've seen like ads. So that's just a thought.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Someone is outsourcing internet trolls because there are not enough internet trolls on Twitter.
Basically, yeah. Like they want their own, so
You
like
gotta be kidding.
Well, they
This
have to
is literally
interject
this.
and
This
put the.
reminds me.
this is a shitstorm here, Adrian. Like there's a lot of craziness that happens. It's like the red district gone wild, you know?
Oh my god! This
Yeah,
reminds me of
keeps the
an episode
vocabulary
from
count
Family
up.
Guy.
What
Literally,
was
this
that?
I
is an
mean,
episode of
I don't
Family.
know. I feel like I have seen people that were just totally, came in to kind of, but I don't know if they were just that unaware of like, just, I mean, that's what I guess who would be paying them and what, like, I don't know. I just feel like I could see that you know, I've seen the people that are just disruptive, but I don't know that like who are you talking about? Like the brothers that always, that's what everybody says, that those that they're always paid and whatever. I'm just like, eh. And maybe I don't know. People are like that. I don't know. Nobody listens to them though. I don't, it's,
You know who they are, right? Like we don't have to say their names. Like we know who they are. And like they have a ton of followers. One of them was following me. I don't know if he still is. I didn't follow him back, but like, you know, it just interesting. Like why would you spend so much time like just being, I mean, like if I were to just be like the internet asshole, like I'd have to, somebody have to pay me for that because I just wouldn't want to have that reputation and just do it for free, you know? I
but
don't
I
know.
mean,
That's just an opinion. Like, I'm gonna look and see if I can find that. There was like an ad for something. I'm gonna see if I can find it.
but that's just it though. I mean, if we're talking fifth generation warfare was about controlling information and a flow of information, then soldiers would be information controllers. I mean, I come from a different, you know, chat service before I came to Twitter because I would be censored, but people would come in and you're right, they're even keeled. They change the conversation slowly. They make it so you can't attack them by using empathy and sympathy against us. And this is kind of fifth generational warfare. And those are the fifth generational warfare soldiers. You know, why we would be short sighted and ignorant to not to think that there's paid people to do that. I mean, just like my company used a chat AI that would have full on conversations with people. And why couldn't a voice be associated with that? Because I mean, with all the voice modulators, inflections, and tones, and all of that stuff. I mean, my spaces sometimes they get big. I mean, really big. I've had, but they're not. But it's rare, and I don't know. Like the only space that I think that might get a lot of listeners, you know, Mario's could on a. If you were to compare across all of them, it might count there. But I mean, in the spaces of like 200 people, 300 people, 600 people from the, like how much impact? Maybe a lot. Maybe you know, maybe you're 100% right. I just I don't know. I just feel like
My God.
yeah.
I just remember this from the days I was still on Discord and very active on there. You actually had people like this, but they were not paid to do it. They just hated me religiously. It was great. I mean, they used to follow me around with like massive armies of bots and such, and just try to make my day living hell. And man, they damn near succeeded once. It got so bad, I was like, fuck, man, I can't keep doing. I can't keep dealing with these people. I need to call it in. I need to call it in. Talked to the moderators, gave them the fucking IP address, basically did the whole job for them, and told them, get rid of these fucking clowns. I've had enough. But it used to be followed around by these people for like months on end, and they were not even paid to do so. They were that fanatical about it. It was insane. It was just absolutely insane. So it really makes me laugh to think about the fact that trolling on here has become so difficult for such people that they basically have to be paid to do so. That someone has to actively just act normal and then just go into a space and do this because spaces are just, not moderated for now.
I'm dying.
Eventually we'll have an AI that can take the speech and actually vet it. We'll have that one day probably. Hopefully not in here, but there is a chance.
I'm trying not to cry laughing because like hearing you talk about it's yeah, but you think like the economy's got really bad. So I mean, people are like, well, if I'm gonna troll, you're gonna have to pay me for it. I don't know. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
They have to keep the word count up also for the different organizations of the hate words. So.
Yeah, and for Twitter, outsource your bullying to India. That's basically the Family Guy meme. It was like, oh my god, the bullying has become so unpopular that they had to basically outsource it to India.
Pakistan, right?
Lazy? I don't know. Yeah, perfectly.
Is there a base troll pay?
Yeah, right.
Get paid in crypto. They'd make it like so much better. Like taking one of those new, those new type of cryptos that no one's heard about, but it's probably just a big scam, and just pay them out in that. Like that'd be the ultimate genius move. Hey, you get free crypto. Yeah, there you go.
Maze,
All
play
right,
the
guys.
AI.
We got to get through the hands because it is 9 a.m. Nikki. We're 2 hours over the hard stop time, Mrs.
I'm doing good. I'm like,
Play
woo.
the AI. Play the AI.
No, I know. The thing is that I do have a date tonight with my honey bunny, and I need to get rested. I need to work out. I need to meditate. I got to get my life together. So I got to go. We can probably give it, I don't know, another 15 minutes. Get some closing remarks. I'll set up some new spaces that I told you guys. I'm gonna hit on, like the AI and spirituality, and also the kind of deeper dive into this stuff. So be on the lookout for those. Not tonight, but they'll be at least maybe tweeted out tonight. So yeah, let's get through these hands, and then we'll wrap up. Who is next? Well, we'll go to Citizen, and then Citizen, you just punt it off.
Oh, is he in stasis again?
Oh no, it happened again. He's laughing, but he can't eat.
God.
Okay, I'll move you down and bring you back up, and let's just see if that works. But in the meantime, let's go to Modern.
Hey, kudos on having boundaries and everything, while also doing something I think is very valuable and meaningful. Is you're a really good person to sort of manage, I guess, conversations and people. You and Nikki both, because you're both very gracious and generous, but you're also very strident in your focus on keeping things more or less on topic. I just wanted to weigh in, I think, on. Sorry, I'm taking a walk right now, so I'm a little bit out of breath. I think so much of Discord and conversations online is managing expectations, because everything you feel about something is basically determined by your expectations. What I mean by that is, like, if I were to show you a Motel 8 room and I were to say, here's your honeymoon suite, you'd be like, thanks, but no thanks. If I were to show you that exact same room, say, here's your prison cell to serve back-to-back life sentences, you'd look around, you'd be like, well, there's a little mini bar, there's a pool, there's internet, there's TV, it's not so bad. Same room, different set of expectations. Completely shapes how you feel about things. And so I think a lot of times how that plays into discourse, civility, and free speech is, with the absence of a sort of unifying meta-narrative or something that we all agree that society is going to be about, absolute truth or God or whatever you want to say it was in the past, people absolutize their feelings by default, I think. And, and I think because we believe that truth is just completely subjective, or at least it seems that way online, what ends up happening is there's almost like a religiousification of opinion. It seems to be that way. And I can't help but wonder if that is sort of the driving engine of a lot of the incivility, because when you disagree with someone today, you're not saying, oh, I think you might be misguided or maybe incorrect in your perception here. It feels like a personal attack, right? And it's like, no, you're a bad person, or you're a wrong person, or you're a stupid person. And I don't think people are saying that, but it's sort of, well, maybe they are sometimes, but it gets interpreted that way. And I think this is the end result of sort of holding up critical theory to be absolute in the universities, right? Because critical theory has a lot of really great utility, but it's when you hold it up to the position of being absolute, it has a very acerbic or caustic effect on society as a whole. Because critical theory it doesn't really add anything to the conversation, it only subtracts. It only deconstructs. It says, let me take this apart completely, look at all the little tiny pieces. And that's useful if you intend to deconstruct society, to reconstruct it again into something purposeful or meaningful or helpful. But if it's only to deconstruct, then you've basically dismantled society, and you've dismantled your own psyche and yourself. And
I think maybe a tool or a solution to this problem or issue is not less skepticism, but more. And what I mean by that is, you can deconstruct deconstructionism. You can be critical of critical theory in a way that's productive, I think. Like just a healthy amount of doubt and humility when it comes to the limits of our epistemology, what we can actually know, observability, is really helpful for driving discourse. Like when you say it's absolutely true, there's no absolute truth, or that it's meaningful to say that everything's ultimately meaningless, or that we know that you can never really know anything, and we're certain about that, or, all truth is a construct except for the construct, that everything's a construct, or everything is a matter of perception, except for perception, that everything is perception, or that you shouldn't believe anything unless it's empirically provable, except for this sentence, which is not empirically provable at all. I think there's so many undergirding presuppositions that we hold as absolute.
I tried to get it up.
And it would just be useful to discard with some of them.
Sorry, Modern. There's the hot mic. Continue.
Oh, I hope maybe you guys caught most of that. I feel like I talked too long at this point, but I just wanted to give the mic over to someone else. But I'm just saying, I think doubt, healthy doubt, with the aim of getting outside of yourself, your presuppositions, is the most useful way to graciously engage with others, but also encourage them to also be gracious.
Look at you on the deep philosophical, I appreciate that. And I hope that everyone here today, when you're outside, you feel the breeze, enjoy it. Like, I think that when we're not connected to information outside of what's going on in our very, in the moment, like when I'm on my screened in porch and I'm listening to the birds, like the life is perfect, like everything in the world is great. Then I look at my phone, like the minute I pick that bad boy up, the chaos is present, right? Like we start talking about, oh my god, the world is breaking apart. But ultimately there are things happening, and we are working through them. But I love what you said, is just kind of inspiring people to feel better, do better, and also, just to enjoy life. Like, don't forget that we are living. And when's the last time you felt alive? Like on a roller coaster? Or do you actually put yourself in that moment, put your attention and observation in everything that you're doing? And I hope, as a little reminder and a little nugget to carry with you on your day to day, to remember that, and so thanks, Modern, you inspired that.
I love the birds, by the way. And I laughed by accident, kind of, because of like when you were saying that, I laughed in an emoji other than just like by myself, because it's like, when's the last time you felt alive? It's like, well, I slipped and fell in the mud the other day. That was
Man, I love mud puddles. Anyway.
Not when you're chasing your dogs in your flip flops and not expecting it. So we're trying to cycle through the hand. So if I moved you down, it was just because we're kind of winding down, to keep from further questions, because we can just go forever. So don't take that personally. And I'm not sure who's next. So
Citizen, if he can get his audio correct. Fixed. You there?
Yo, it finally worked. Are you kidding me? That was so painful. You have no idea. Yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of go down this. I was gonna talk about something like 20 minutes ago. I don't even know. But in terms of trust in the UN, hell no. Look, when we talk about climate change and the IPCC with their predictive models and all these other things, you're talking about the WHO and all the agencies. Like, think about how many billions of dollars have funneled through the WHO. They've been called out on corruption, and it's well documented, right? Multiple agencies misspending funds, unethical behavior. so on and so forth, right? And it's just funny because in a just world, they're supposed to be like this recommendation type of organization, and they would come into the United States and take a look at our elections and tell us what's wrong with them, right? But why won't they do that, right? United States is one of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, right? And so as they're all hosting, with the WEF, all these massive corporations, these companies are chomping at the bit to get their piece of the multi-trillion dollar industries, as the United Nations is talking about stakeholder capitalism, right? And it's just like it's this huge gaslighting of, we care about you, but we're going to profit off of you. And AI is a part of climate change and also the bioeconomy and new medicines for cancer. We're gonna finally cure cancer, even though we probably helped create it in massive numbers, right? Like, it's just, do I trust the UN? No. And I think that's the reason why I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning with y'all, and after a full 8 hours of working until 2 a.m., because the UN is a huge piece of this, and it's a rabbit hole that I've definitely gone down, and I'm going to continue to go down. So I'll stop there.
100%. And I agree with everything that you said. And I hope that we can somehow defund and, just undo that whole organization, because that we do need to have a real discussion about that, pulling in the right people to talk about it, instead of because I feel like there's a point that we can swim and then it just we can't swim any further. And I think we need to bring in some people that have knowledge on the international legal side, like the law part of it, the and how just exploring this further, getting at least, I don't know, some better questions to ask, and we'll figure it out. Okay, so let's go to Angela. I've not heard from you yet. Welcome. And then we'll go to Johnny, and then Prometheus is always going to sprinkle the spirituality on it. So then we'll go out with Prometheus. Go ahead, Angela. Jump in, love.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I just wanted to touch base on the only thing that I know that pays on Twitter are the Substacks and things like that. I've never heard of anybody paying for trolls. That's odd. I don't know if you've heard of it before or not. And as far as the AI bots talking back and forth, I've seen people say that that's what it was, but when I looked into it, it was actually real people talking, because I actually seen them in spaces. Just, I don't think it's the bots talking back and forth. It was very weird to hear that.
Do you mean in the videos that I played?
No. Actual in rooms, in space rooms.
Right, gotcha.
And I'm unsure. I could be wrong, but I thought it was real people just pretending, but I don't know.
Thanks, love. Go ahead, Johnny.
Maze, I have listened to you in many spaces, but I don't ever. It's like following Elon Musk. Following you is like the same. Back to business. So I had this idea when ChatGPT came out that we could use AI to. This is an earlier conversation where we could use AI to dismantle congressional bills so that we could actually understand them. And I have had this conversation, and people say, no, AI is the enemy. And I'm like, it's technology. AI can be your friend if you use it properly. It's like any kind of weapon. You can use it for good or you can use it for evil. And I don't know how to express it properly. I write words so much better than I speak, because sometimes just everything in my mind falls out at one time and it doesn't get, can't be, I'm not a good debater, is what I'm saying. So your spaces are probably the best way for people to understand that technology can be the enemy or it can be the good. It's how we choose to use it. And I think if that, because we can all speak, together, and somebody said, and I don't remember, it wasn't Citizen, it was somebody else that said, he made this statement about a jack of all trades. That's not the way that expression was really said. The way that it was said is a jack of all trades is often better than a master of one. And so in this space, think about how many of us are technically proficient in one aspect. Fine. But if we can share our technical aspects with everyone else, then the rest of us become journeymen or jacks, as the British Navy used to call people. Then we can become jacks of all trades. We can understand how we're being betrayed, and that's the root of this cause. I believe that the World Economic Forum, they believe that depopulation is the right answer, and they're wrong. There's, and I said this earlier, and I'm not going to go back and rehash, but innovation is the right answer. Technology can be our savior, not our demon. And I think they want to demonize it so that we don't embrace it. And we should embrace it to root them out for what they are, for who they are, and what they're trying to do to us. And I just dropped the mic there.
Thanks, Johnny. I listen, I am known as the global call out person. That's literally what my specialty. And when I say specialty, meaning I'm very careful about how I parse the information because it's so important, especially if you're talking about things like that are considered conspiracy. Sorry, I had to cough.
No, I know.
And so,
because
but yeah,
when I say these things,
mm-hmm.
It sounds like I'm like, and when I was speaking earlier, I said how my father subscribed to a newspaper that thought that one of the Rockefellers was promoting eugenics. And I really thought it was, but I was only 19. Yeah. And here we are all these years later. And this seems to be what is really happening.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely.
So
yeah.
So look, you have this amazing space that reaches a lot of people. And I believe in my heart that I had this crazy imagination that I could ask ChatGPT to dismantle the last budget from Congress. And they go, oh, we don't go that far into we only stop at 2021, or I forget what it said. And I'm like, but that's the secret. We can use technology to break the back of the World Economic Forum, of all of what these globalists believe, and I went sideways on you, and I apologize. But
That's okay.
no, but earlier,
You just
no,
gave me a great idea. Go ahead. Sorry.
okay, but what I was trying to say earlier is, so there are mines that are mines like, real cobalt mines and everything else that are trying to provide the infrastructure for the green energy. Like we all talk about or people speak about the global industrial complex. Well,
Yep.
the next one,
Johnny, just a heads up. I'm gonna give you till exactly 9:30. So take your 2 minutes, say whatever you want. I'm gonna close out
2
right
minutes, and
after.
I'll get out.
No, you're good.
No.
You're good. Go ahead, honey.
So it's turned from the global industrial complex to the green energy global industrial complex, that we're going to imagine that we can create these things from nothing. And it's not true. It's on the backs of children. And I beg you to follow Lee Pettimore. He's a real miner, and he exposes the cost of what it takes to mine these things that provide the energy for windmills and solar panels. And this isn't the answer. I don't know how to explain it, but whales were hunted all the way almost to extinction until Standard Oil provided kerosene lamps. I don't know what the next answer is, but I know that a solar panel provided from China isn't the answer from mining from children. I'm just not that brilliant. I wish I was. And I really thank you for just giving me a second chance to explain myself. Love you, Maze.
I love you too, Johnny. Thank you. Listen, you and I are on the same page. Everything that you said, I'm 100% in agreement with. And I mean, I listened carefully too. There were some pieces that we can elaborate on when I do have my space, but you should definitely come and rock out with me in the global spaces where we go into all this stuff in detail. There's certain people that I feel like as we are continuing to make progress in a lot of these conversations, there's many people that don't have the foundation that we have. So it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to even grasp a lot of what we're talking about. So, once every couple of weeks, I have kind of one of those, let's talk about it. And we go down the rabbit hole of what these organizations are, who is a part of them, how they're connected, and what we're seeing in our local environments in terms of legislation and whatnot, and how we trace it all the way up the line to them. So it helps, I guess, a lot of people who are just now kind of waking up in the matrix to be able to put these pieces together. So I'd love to have you part of that. That way you can help fill in some of the gaps and details, because it seems that you know a lot about it. It goes for all of you.
Maze.
Yep.
Anytime. I swear, if I didn't know you, if you're in the morning, I'll be here.
I usually end up in the morning. They tend to go long. I'll say that. So I will always I'll remember to send you the invite, and that way, whenever you wake up or whatever, you can come in. But so it is now the end of the space, guys. Thank you so much for coming. Make sure you're saving and bookmarking all the links from this space. We got one coming up on Thursday with Adrian. This one is kind of more about health and nutrition, which go hand in hand, but also AI and AI safety and all types of good stuff, bringing in the whole scientific stuff. And all of you guys tend to be really into the scientific shit and the AI shit and the global shit. So like, boom, now we're just going to add some health and nutrition to the mix. And now it's very well-rounded. Go ahead, Nikki. Right after you, we'll close down.
I just wanted to make sure that we'll probably be doing a test space or two just to see how things work, because as you know, it can be difficult to get a space moving and grooving. So to try to help with technical issues and things like that. So I might contact you for that as well. So we might just do like pop-up spaces, like just for an hour or two. And those are mainly to just see where things go, what the interest is, what are people talking about, and what's important. So yeah, that's it. And make sure you have your notifications on because I'm just learning. Notifications are important, guys. Otherwise, you get buried in the craziness. So if you don't have them on for Maze, especially, turn them on for me, for Adrian, anybody that you heard. There's a lot of brilliant people here on the Twitter pages. So make sure you follow everybody and turn on the notifications so when people are in spaces talking, you can pop in there and see what's going on. You might end up in a space that you wouldn't normally find, which is really cool because I've been, the last couple of days, that's kind of what I've been doing is just popping in and listening to other spaces to bring information back into our normal spaces where our close family is, but we've got a lot of distant relatives out there we don't even know we have to go searching for and have them, get all these people moving and grooving together. So, yep, that being said, Maze, go ahead and close your space out. And I love you as always, and you guys are awesome. Thank you.
I love you too. And the speakers that didn't get a chance to come up, I'm so sorry, but I will definitely do my best to make you first the next time if you do come in. And I heard that we have to wait like 10 seconds before closing the room or it messes up the recording. So I am just going to, y'all can go ahead and drop out. I'm going to stay here for 10 seconds and then close down. But much love, guys. Have an amazing day.